So let me know. Yeah. So this is in Contemporary Aesthetics by Nicole Hall, Virtue, Appreciation, and Sustainability in Olafur Eliasson's Ice Watch. So let me know. And here we go. And as always, it was my first time reading it too. So let's just see how it goes. One of the reasons we value the natural environment is for its varieties of beauty, the richness and diversity of places we increasingly know and care about: skies, space, oceans, deserts, prairies, forests, swamps, canyons, deltas, rainforests, lakes, beaches, mountains, gardens, parks, rivers, waterfalls, and some built environments, ice, places of worship, creativity, and memory. No, Manny, not for you. It sometimes saddens and depresses us. Willow trees, bleak moors, stark rock faces, yeah, disused quarries, delights us, ladybirds, octopuses, dragonflies, fireflies, frogs. One of those places is not like others? No. A bunch of these places are, this is like the author's opinion at this point. It's just like, this is nice, but like, I don't care, author's opinion. What do you not like about these things? Yeah. So, whatevers. So yeah, they're frightened by storms and scorpions. I'm sure there are people. This is him trying to hit word count, perhaps. I think it's a, if I had to guess, I'd say it's a Nicole. So I'm guessing a her, but fine. I don't know. But yeah, this is a very silly start. Although we've had silly starts turn into good papers before, and we've had good starts, you know, completely fail on us. So this is just someone trying to do something. I don't know what's going on. So distresses or horrifies us: death, disease, viruses. Oh my god, those scary, scary viruses. And irritates us: mosquitoes and humidity. Yeah, well, this one I'm feeling right now. This is bad here in New York. We've learned about the natural environment and a relationship with through art, stories, narratives, poems, and music. We have gleaned scientific theories from idealized models based on it. For example, evolutionary theories, theories of relativity, quantum mechanics, and biophotonics, just as we've wanted to understand the possible objectivity and experience of time. Whole panoplies. Yeah, and they're hitting their vocabulary now too. Whole panoplies of experiences are possible through the natural environment, from aesthetic to moral, from scientifically learned to politically learned, from brute real experience to imagined fantasies and fantasy worlds, through scientific genealogies and disciplines to local history, culture, and storytelling, through cameras, telescopes, binoculars, microscopes, and increasingly sophisticated imaging technologies, and via paintbrushes, concepts, words, metaphors, and lyrics. Yeah, Lumpy, I know. I was wondering if I was going to run into you streaming, but it's hot out here. I was like, I'm not going outside. I will stream instead. But how you doing, Lumpy? Yeah. The aesthetic dimension of experience often contributes to and permeates these experiences to greater or lesser degrees in various forms. Yeah, I might be going out to dinner later too. So I figured instead of like starting stream later, I'd stream early and, you know, see how it's going. Yeah, you were setting up. Yep. Figured. So hey, maybe I'll get to raid someone like Lumpy, who I don't normally get to raid. Nevertheless, the importance of aesthetic value is often thought to be mitigated or limited by ethical value. What at first seems like a platitude, that ethical concerns always and necessarily outweigh aesthetic concerns, is not always and necessarily as obvious as we might think. You know, this is a good point at least. Most of the time people put ethics over aesthetics. Not always. Indeed, if serious, the aesthetic dimension of our experience of environments reveals simplicities and complexities of our relationship with a wide variety of places like those mentioned above. Recent discussions in aesthetics have revealed the harmonies and conflicts between aesthetic and moral value in the wider environmental context, and positive and negative aesthetic value, but also carry over into environmental works of art, such as land art, earthworks, earth art, and ecological art. Yeah. One thing I want to give to aesthetics is that it definitely is more pervasive. You know, you can like appreciate aesthetics all the time. Like, you know, the cover of like Green Eggs and Ham. Like, so I've got Green Eggs and Ham like right here. So this is the cover of Green Eggs and Ham. We've got it right there, and like, you know, we've got like, you know, comic art right there, and you can appreciate that. There's no moral to like appreciating the comic art right here. I guess you could like be like, okay, this was a book and it was manufactured, and there's a moral dimension to that, but like it's not as immediate as the aesthetics. Yeah, so like it's like the aesthetics is more pervasive. Like you can just like, I can look out my window, I can see trees, I can appreciate the trees. Now if I look out the window, I can see like, oh, also power lines. So I see power lines and trees. Now if I want to think about the morals of power lines, well, I mean, there's technology and I can get into that, but it's more involved. I can just like appreciate trees for like, being trees. Power lines, they're not pretty, they're not like particularly ugly, it's just a wire going by, but like, so what? So it's like the morals are, I feel like it takes more work. There's a good point that, like class consciousness, Marxism, that's a phenomenological thing. You have to be able to see the way classes interact in society, and that takes like, work. Like you have to understand things about classes and people and money and dialectical materialism and whatever, like money and society, things like that. That takes a lot of understanding. Aesthetically, you can just appreciate a tree, apparently. Or at least it's said that you can. So, land art took hold in the 1960s with the advent of the Earth Art exhibition at the Andrew Dixon Weil Museum of Art and Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. Environmental artists and art include Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty. Yeah, this is a famous piece. You can see pictures if you like Google this. On the Great Salt Lake in Utah, whose ephemeral beauty plays on the imagination and highlights the importance of our relationship with the natural environment. Nancy Holt, whose sun tunnels located in the Utah desert, reframes sunrises and sunsets and constellations such as Perseus and Capricorn using industrial concrete cylinders. Agnes Dennis Wheatfield, A Confrontation, which was the growing and harvesting over 1,000 pounds of wheat on a plot worth $4.5 billion on a 2-acre plot a couple of blocks away from the Wall Street and World Trade Center. Yeah, I remember, I've seen this. I saw pictures of this. This is really interesting. If you haven't seen this, being from New York, like, so back in like the 80s, there were still some like empty plots of land that hadn't yet been developed in Lower Manhattan, or it might have been right across the water. And so there was a wheat field an artist put in there before like they built on it. And so like it's just like this field of wheat and you're looking at the New York City skyline. And so of course you could do that if you like, combined photographs. But the fact that it was real, that you could actually go to a wheat field in Lower Manhattan. Hey, Taderas, yeah, early stream. It's too hot out, so I'm not going outside in like the, 30 plus degree, in civilized terms, 90 something degree weather here. And so I figured, and I might be going out to dinner later, so I figured, have a more leisurely dinner and avoid the terrible weather. So. Yep. So we're reading some aesthetics. This paper has not started well, but then again, maybe they're just, that's okay. Not everything has to start so fantastic. It just started listing artsy things. Even German news reporting is nonstop about Trump. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. You just don't pay for everyone? Yeah, well, I'm only paying for myself this time. Yeah, no. Non-fungible, yo, what's up, Vipers? How you doing? Non-fungible turbo. Then does that mean IRL dinner stream so we can see how you chew? I mean, I'm not planning on streaming dinner, but like I could one day. Like people have suggested I mukbang, go get like a proper New York City pizza, and like just eat it. Yeah, King Jog here is 30 degrees and humid. Yeah, like, and Lumpy is north of me. I'm not gonna say where he is. I mean, Lumpy is free to say, but like I am south of Lumpy, and like it's the whole like area. And like he's over 30, and I'm even more over 30 and humid. Yeah, so, yeah. Well, Tinderos, not every stream can be for everyone. I don't plan on mukbanging, but who says I can't? Maybe I want to expand out into just the competitive eating scene. But like, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, there's no point in looking at the news because it's just about Trump getting shot in the ear. If anyone doesn't know, Trump got shot in the ear. It was it looks like an assassination attempt. It's a Pleasant 63. Oh, Vipers. That would be so nice. Yeah. So, like, I assume that's in, Fahrenheit, like American. Thank you for converting. But, like, yeah, that's, like, nice weather. We are 90 plus degrees and humid. Tender Juicy Nuggets, the aesthetics of mukbanging is very immediate. And that's one of the things I like about the aesthetics. It's that it's like always there. Like aesthetics is more of a constant thing. there's ways to combine aesthetics and ethics, but that's one of the questions. If it was Celsius, you wouldn't be alive. Yeah, it would be bad. Well, I mean, yeah, that would be very, very bad. I appreciate you converting for us Americans. Yeah, so like, and that's one of the questions. Like, what can you actually do on stream? Like philosophically, like mukbang is one of these. Like, you understand? When I set out to do philosophy roulette, I was setting out to like review philosophy in a reaction style stream. Like, this is a reaction stream, and not any different, not very different. I was watching music reactors on YouTube, and that's part of where the history of this comes from. So it's like, if you're gonna do philosophy, how do you do philosophy on stream? Like, doing a mukbang, like doing something like aesthetically unusual, is kind of not that far off. So it's something, yeah. Yeah, and something that he's gonna look like Nicole avocado. Yeah, something he's gonna look fun. Rebuttal idea stream: you could go eat at your local Indian restaurant, take the whole chat on a cool NYC date. You know, I mean, I don't love the idea of like being one of those people who has like, you know, a stream setup and going into a restaurant and doing that. I find that a little rude to the other people. But what I could do is, you know, order food and then like have like a setup and like, you know, show everyone the food I got here. So yeah, it's not a bad idea, but like, there's one of the streamers I watched. I don't really watch him as much anymore, but one of the guys I watched for the what got me onto Twitch was Mr. Llama, who's you can see the little you can click on his emote there. It's the llama stuff. So one of the things he was saying was that he's basically dating chat. Like, he says, as a streamer, you're dating chat. Like, you're professional, but you're basically going on a date. Like, you're trying to like hang out with people every time you're streaming. It's like you're basically dating chat. So yeah. Got 26 degrees Celsius, the proper measurement, the one 99% of the world uses. Well, you know, sometimes the 1%'s right, Tindarius. Sometimes. Go to the sewer and eat pizza with turtles. If I could, I would, Vipers. Like, that would be like fucking amazing if like there were actually sewer turtles. Although there are sewer crocodiles sometimes. And borrow my cousin's backyard again, order food like a lo-fi dinner date. Yeah, like that's exactly what it would be. Like, I could like, you know, do exactly that sort of thing. Please no, while we're going steady. Yeah, of course not. I'm not dating anyone here. No, I know. But like most streamers, some of them don't look that like fancy when streaming when they are streaming, but many of them do. Many of them are like, you know, they get themselves a little bit, you know, more presentable. Like, I don't really do a whole lot, but I do try to like, you know, I do fix my hair. I do like try to push it out of the way when I start streaming. It's like I do make an attempt to not look as shitty as I might be. So it's like, it isn't again, the immediacy of the medium means that it's like you have to consider how people are interacting with this. I wear clothes. That's a plus point. Well, I thank you, Tindaris. Yeah, I do wear clothes. So like that's like, this is that's how it goes. But yeah, like but this is just to the aesthetics of streaming, the aesthetics of like everyday life. There is something to all of this. Like this setup here, like just like, you know, the orientation of like the words and like, you know, having chat below me and all that. Like, you know, it did take some, like I did think about it a bit. I'm married to chat, Queen Elizabeth I, yes. But yeah, like this is, there is something to aesthetics. It is a more, like, there is something to, like, the aesthetics of all this that's going on. Like, people tell you when you get into streaming, your video actually matters. The quality of your video matters less than the quality of your audio. The audio actually matters to the quality of your stream more than the quality of the video, even though it's a visual medium. You're like, if you don't know that, like, now you've known. Like, this is what people say. It matters a lot more. So, yeah. Like, these things matter. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, facing the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, so this was a wheat field downtown. And you get, it's like, it was in the 80s, so you get the old 80s New York look to things. As reported on Agnes Dennis website, the harvested grain traveled to 28 cities around the world in an exhibition called the International Art Show for the End of World Hunger, organized by the Minnesota Art Museum of Art. That's funny. The seeds were carried away by people who planted them in many parts of the globe. Tender Juicy Nugget says, would you say there's something intimate sexual about eating food with somebody? Some streamers refuse to show themselves eating on stream. Yes, there can be. I mean, it's not necessarily so, but there can be. So people, like any sort of bodily function, I see people, like, even for sneezing or blowing their nose, they hit the be right back. And so they don't want to, they have a certain way they want to be presented, and so it may not be intimate, but it's not the way they want to present themselves on stream. And so the fact that they're eating or doing something like non-streamy, it's like, this is a show. You don't normally see any presenter just eating food on TV, because there's a good chance you're going to like make a mess of yourself. Anything could go wrong. And so it's a riskier sort of way of interacting with chat, and that you could see as intimate. Lumpy says, I agree. Code Miko interacts with 1.5k viewers as a single entity. She refers to everyone as chat, and the reactions of every individual in the chat follows statistical curves, and the responses he gives are unified enough that she has a coherent conversation with chat. She dates chat by doing these trashy joke virtual dinners. Yeah, like, that's part of the issue here, is that you are, like, interacting. Another streamer I watched, I haven't watched him in forever, that was Gotham Chess. He said, streaming is more like hanging out in someone's living room. You are now invited into, like, kind of my house. We are hanging out in my living room. You're in my chat, and if you think of everything you say in chat as something you might say in my living room, if, like, to all the people that are there, like, that's a good way of thinking about it. If you start saying weird shit in chat, it's like, well, would you say that if you were in someone's living room? Yeah. Tender Juice makes sense, still comes back to aesthetics, how they want to be seen. Yeah. And so this is part of the issue. And like, this is why we're talking aesthetics today. So it's like virtue aesthetics and sustainability. I don't know exactly where they're going to go with this stuff, but like, there is something to this, like art, like the art and aesthetic character of like this medium. So yeah. Impossible. Your room is too cluttered to hang out. Yeah. See if it works today.
Condoms are for fucking pussies.
Accurate as usual, Vipers. Yeah. So, I mean, you could technically be in here. Like, there's a little bit of space, but like, not much. This room is not very big. It's just, I'm using it for streaming and like some storage, but that's about it. Yeah. But yeah, so I got a few more people. I'm going to go look at an apartment this week. Like, so I might try to move in the next, like, few months, but I have no idea. But I'm going to go actually look at a place. The price seems cheap enough for what you're getting. I don't know how messy the place is. They said it needs a bit of a renovation. That's okay. But, like, for all I know, I won't be in this room in, like, 6 months. It'd be amazing. But, yeah. Anyway, yeah, and this is one of the problems with me is I want more space because I want to fucking, like, a project room where I can stream in. And so I need more space than just like, people stream in their bedroom. I'm like, I don't want to do that shit. But points for the double meaning and even more of the social context. Yes. This paper feels so wishy-washy. Yeah, Maddie. I'm hoping what happens here is that they start off a little wishy-washy and then they, get a little bit more, like the argument gets tighter along the way. I'm not against, just sort of like pulling as much in it as you can to start. Is not the worst strategy because you don't know who you're dealing with. So you're just trying to like sort of build up, like, so this is a writing strategy. I don't normally do things this way. This is not how I operate. I usually start like very laser focused. But other people, they're better with like Legos. You're starting with little pieces and they're all sort of messy around, like messy at first, but then like you build up to something. And I've heard other people like, there's like castle builders out there. That's how he described it. He builds castles out of pieces. And it's like, he's not like with some grand vision, but like he's very deliberate. He takes really good pieces and he puts them all together in interesting ways. What I'm hoping this happens here. Yeah, well, this isn't a social science. Again, this is a philosophy paper, Maddie. Like, that's true. But what I'm hoping happens here is they're taking pieces and then eventually it will build into something more substantial. I don't know. This is why it's roulette. You may just end up being all wishy-washy bullshit. But yeah, that's how I hope it goes. I don't know. Yeah, but it's about the philosophy of social science. Well, we don't know exactly where it's going, Maddie. Like, they may end up making a claim. Well, see, this is directed at a specific piece. Like, when we get down to here, this essay is a case study. I mean, we haven't read this paragraph above it, but they're going to be talking about one thing eventually. So we'll see if, like, what they started off with has anything to do with what they eventually say. Lumpy says, I'd walk to the waterfront and get dinner from a food truck, but this year there's only junk seafood, so I go for an ice cream after dinner. Yeah, so. Ooh, a new, Japanese ramen place opened up near me. Apparently they have one other location, but like a new ramen place. And I was walking by, I didn't know it was open yet, and I saw like their open sign, and so I went in there yesterday, and so it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not the best ramen, but like it's good enough. Like it's good ramen. So, Browarren is light the shadow of God. Possibly, I don't know. I don't know what God, like. What would look if light was the shadow of God? There would have to be some other source that was shining on God that would make what we see as light the shadow. So that would mean there was something outside of God, and therefore God would not. It would be something less than the combination of the thing creating the shadow on God. So it would seem unlikely if you're using the Christian sense of God as being like everything. So. Yeah, it is Lucky Lumpy. So it's probably unlikely, Browarren, depending on your definition of God. If you can have many gods and like they're in some sort of pantheon and then there's some sort of structure outside of that, maybe. But like if you're talking about like the monotheistic, like God as like all powerful, all creator, then no. I mean, and that just depends on your definition there. Viper says, an article I read said, after the rally, Trump went back to his home in New Jersey, talked about aesthetic visualization. Yeah. I mean, I'm from New York. I've trashed New Jersey when I was a kid because, like, it was a funny thing to do. New Jersey has some really nice areas, like, you know, like, a lot of people live there. My brother has a house there. Like, it's fine. People are good. People are basically the same as they are here in New York. So I was like, yeah, we can... If there's lots of shitty places in New Jersey, but guess what? There's lots of shitty places everywhere. Like, you can imagine the shitty place in your neighborhood. Trump is not living in the shitty place in your neighborhood because Trump is rich. Lots of great exits, yeah. One thing about the New Jersey Turnpike nowadays is that they have been renovating their the gas station and like, you know, little rest stops. So the rest stops on the New Jersey Turnpike, they've been renovating, and when they renovate them, they name them after famous New Jerseyans. So now you're going to the James Gandolfini rest stop, or the John Bon Jovi rest stop, or what's that lady who wrote the books? Well, there's a bunch of them. But like, so you're now going to these rest stops named after famous New Jerseyans, which is really funny. But like, you might think that's kind of a crappy thing to do, but it's really nice because then you see famous New Jerseyans names on the highways and they get like repeated over and over. Judy Blume. So like, I stopped at the Judy Blume rest stop. So it's like, yeah, Judy Blume. Thank you, Vipers. Yeah. Gandalf was Italian? No. Gandolfini. James Gandolfini, the actor. So from, whatever, that TV show. Yes, streamer brand. I lose words doing this. Yeah, I'm losing it. So, but yeah, James Gandolfini from the Mob show, The Sopranos. Thank you. Yeah, but this is what happens when I stream. My word pull, whatever that is, goes first, and it's usually that way with me. If I drink beer, that's also the first thing that goes on my word pull, like recognition, just takes a craps to bed. But anyway, yeah. But like, so I'm not gonna hate on New Jersey. It's a great place. Although, like everywhere else, it has shitty spots. Oh, he died young, yeah. You don't even have that excuse? Well, it happens to me other times too, but it definitely happens when streaming. Yeah. All right, so let's we got to get down to here, but let's get through this paragraph here. The more recent examples include Bungil Geoglyph by Andrew Rogers, a tribute to the indigenous people of Wathaurong Aboriginal people, in the form of an eagle made of local stone and whose wingspan is 100 meters. Stellar Axis, Antarctica by Lita Albuquerque, which consists of 99 blue spheres placed on a sheet of ice that matches the size and location of stars above, and whose shift in position commemorates a shift in time and space, reminding us of past and future of the expanse of the universe. Shannon Doherty freaked me out. She's not that much older than me. Yeah, that happens when you're getting older. You're like, wow, these people I've been watching for 20 years. And they're like 2 years older than you're like, I've been, an adult for 20 years. So it's like, yeah, happens. What's her name? Yeah, did she just die? Who is the person who just died? Oh, dear. I don't think she died. There was someone who... Who died today? Celebrity death. Celebrity death. Who was it? Because it wasn't Trump. Yeah, was that Shannon Doherty? Let's see. Yeah, it was. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Shannon Doherty right here. Yeah, this one. So, yeah. This is what it was. She passed away yesterday. Yeah. Whatever's is such is life at this point. It's you get older and you start realizing that a lot of people die. It's like way more than you realize, because you start to know more people just by being older for longer, and so then you start to realize a lot of them drop off. And like when you're younger, it's just like the percentage of people you know are younger, and so they're not dying except for really shitty reasons. But that happens too. But then when you get older, people start dying like because you know you've like heard a lot more people, and then all of a sudden it's like this is a way more regular occurrence. And expect when I get much older, you know, the percentage of people I know that are dying or dead is going to be high, and that's going to be a sort of a weird, unusual sort of feeling at that point. But yeah, called getting older. It's exciting. All right. So, anyways, also people are dying at much older rates than in the past. Yeah. So like. That's a good point. The way people are dying is different now than it has been. So people, when they die young, are dying for different reasons than they did in the past. And then like the way people are dying older is also different too. And so like these things, like you hear someone have like, you know, a heart attack in their 50s and you're like, damn, that's young. But then like, you know, sometimes it happens when they're old and it's like it's different. So things are different. Like my mom was just told she needed a hip replacement last week. Like it's not critical, she doesn't need it like now, but they were like, you need a hip replacement eventually, and she was like, oh god, that sounds terrible, and the guy was like, yeah, it's not even a big deal anymore. Yeah. Oh yeah, when your dad retired during the first year, he had to attend like 6 funerals in the span of 4 months. It bummed him out. Yeah. Tindera says, I don't mind as long as natural death is just part of life. Yeah. But I mean, we're fucking with whatever our natural lives are. We're getting so many drugs and so many things. It's like, yeah, the hip replacement. And this is one of those things you have to realize also. If you lose your hearing, apparently your mind goes with it very quickly. Like if you just get cut off from the world, you need to have the mental stimulation to keep your brain working. And so the idea that we have really good hearing implants and like hearing assisting devices nowadays is keeping people saner for longer too. And so that's very different. So it's like all these things, it's like what counts as a natural death? Well, you know, if they lose their mind and they get dementia, okay, but maybe that could have been prevented nowadays. Maybe that wouldn't have been like a natural death if it had been, if they had better hearing aids or whatever. It's interesting. It's weird stuff. Viper says a baby boom eventually leads in a boom in corpses. Yeah, so this is one of those things. Like we're losing everybody from like the early 30s now, the last of them, and we're starting to hit baby boomers getting up there in age, and it's going to be quick. I think that's a good point, Vipers. It's going to be a sort of a sociological thing where we're going to be having death after death when the baby boomers start to get to the limits of medical technology. So yeah. Yeah, unnatural death hits you? It's interesting, Tindarios. I mean, what counts as unnatural, though, for you? Lumpy says, right, older men going deaf, refusing to acknowledge it from pride in the isolation themselves, but still votes yes. Well, welcome to Merca. But, like, yeah, my buddy at work, his dad got, like, much less verbal at a certain point. And, like, he was fine. And then all of a sudden he went, like, much less verbal. And, like, I think his hearing was bad. And so it was, like, one of these things where, like, he sort of closed off and then he got sick and died. And it was just one of these like quick collapses. I don't think it was any major thing, but it was just once a few things started going wrong, everything went wrong and just he died. So it was 2 years ago, I think, for that guy. But like it was okay. Okay, suicide, for example? Yeah, all right. I mean, fair enough. But like, I mean, yeah, I don't really get too messed up about like celebrity. I don't get messed up about celebrity deaths. I was pissed about just a few of them. One of them was suicide, but like, it's like whatever. I mean, I don't know about that. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you mean people you know. Oh, that's fair, of course. That will mess you up. Has messed me up too. So yeah. And old memories now. So you don't give a fuck about celebrities? Yeah, I don't give a fuck about celebrities. The only one that I gave a fuck about was Anthony Bourdain. Because Anthony Bourdain is from like my area of the world. He's from Jersey, but like the area of Jersey that's really close to like right here in New York. So he's like really not far. He's like from suburbia, like mostly like I am. And I was pissed. I was like, that's kind of like from like the area ish I'm from, who did like end up doing some really fucking cool stuff in New York and in the area. It's like that one pissed me off. Everything else I don't care about. But Anthony Bourdain, when he went, that was sad. So that was the only one that really got me. But I mean, like I was saying before, James Gandolfini, as we were saying, died early, and people around here really appreciate it because even though he was a mobster, he was representing the area and like, you know, New Jersey people, and it's like people like that. So yeah. Okay, continuing. This essay is a case study of Olafur Eliasson's Ice Watch, an instance of environmental art that might philosophically and critically help illuminate considerations between aesthetic and moral value as it relates to art, the natural environment, and our relationship to both. Our guiding questions will be: what can we learn from Ice Watch regarding the development of a sustainable attitude towards environment, taking into consideration aesthetic value and ethical value? How and what might we learn from it to better understand the relationship between aesthetic value, ethical value, and the concept of sustainability? Divided into 3 parts, the paper first provides a description of Eliasson's work and its aesthetic context. One lesson to draw here is about relationality, how artworks frame our relationships with aesthetic properties and objects on the one hand, and how we sensually experience aesthetic properties on the other. Vipers used to work at a bar back in the day. There was this huge guy that was an ox. He was the one that took in deliveries, changed the kegs, etc. One day he didn't come in. Turns out he was helping his mom change a light bulb and just dropped dead from a brain aneurysm. Yikes. That sucks. De Niro says, when also some author I read died, especially if it's by suicide. Yeah. There's the old story about statistical mechanics and physics, where a bunch of like the early people working on statistical mechanics all took their own life. And so it's like, we are now going to like study statistical mechanics, but be forewarned that like all the people that worked on this, that started it off, like they all off themselves. So we have to like tread lightly here. So it happens. So, all right. The paper then offers an analysis of Ice Watch based on a virtues approach, which incorporates the relationality addressed in part 1, perceptual, intellectual double awareness, and the importance of aesthetic value. We also hear about being a single man living lonely to an early grave. I was wondering how, like what were the medical link between the loneliness that killed. Then I bought an exercise bike that requires 2 people for assembly and had an epiphany. Ooh, that's how I can't do sport. But I think hygiene degradation is a big part. Keeping clean to please others is useful. Yeah. Oh, is it not real, Vipers? I'm not even surprised. But like it would be disappointing. Oh yeah, one of the best openings in the book. Okay, I thought it was like a Snopes, like it is real. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, Boltzmann did, and then Paul Ehrenfest also did. So it's like you have to be careful when studying statistical mechanics. Yeah. That's again, we are in some sense very fundamentally social creatures. If we don't have the engagement with other people, we will, in some sense, like it's like it's a holistic thing, but our lives degrade. Okay, fair enough, Vipers. So it's like if you can't talk, if you are not engaging like with the world in terms of audio, and of course, if you're deaf, that's different. If you never did, but like if you were someone who had hearing and then you lose it, it cuts off a major part of your brain that it needs to be active, or else you just sort of, it really fucks your head up. And so we don't have full explanations of how this happens, but like as Lumpy says, this sort of engagement with others really keeps us moving in new ways, and we need that to stay alive. We can't just keep doing the same thing over and over. We're not machines in that way, or even if we are machines, we wear out and we break, and we need to vary it up. We have to I always think of it as like sort of crop rotation. You have to do different things and then you can regrow, but you can't do the same thing over and over and over and expect the same results. You need to do different stuff and then you can come back to what you were doing before and it's okay. But if you do one thing over and over, it will fuck you up. All right. So if Maddie's still here, this is what I was hoping would happen. They had some bullshit in the beginning and now they're getting into the more, well, we're going to actually say something significant here. So, like, we're going to do, like, the bullshit above just as an intro, and then we're going to do sort of, like, these sort of, like, actual things. And then the final section presents objections, for example, that some artworks are affronts that that emphasis should necessarily be on production-oriented ethical criticism, or that attitudinal flaws cause ethical flaws in the production of such works, as in contextual conjunctivism. So, yeah, now we're getting our little textual stuff. That's a cute analogy? Well, thank you, Lumpy. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I like, because almost everything I do for, like, actually at work and when I'm writing stuff is, like, this conceptual stuff. Like, I program a little, that's all thinking. I write philosophy, that's all thinking and reading. At work, I'm doing, like, stuff with numbers, paying bills. That's, again, a lot of, like, it's basic math and stuff like that. But, like, that's all the same sort of bullshit, like computer stuff. So I like doing things with my hands. I like, try to build stuff. I do a little leather work because that's a little different. I have to get more physically active, though, at this point. What about Discipline and Punishment by Michael Foucault? Yeah, well, it's, I don't know what the beginning of that is. Do you have a clip of the beginning of the Foucault, Tindarios? Okay. Epistemic reasons such as artistic instrumentalism and the artist's own actions threaten the aesthetic and ethical aims of Eliason's installation, especially due to claims of artistic hypocrisy that the artist engages in behavior that contributes to environmental destruction. Page 14. See what we got. Let's let that load in the background. Hopefully it won't kill my internet. Loading. That's the beginning, yeah. Okay. Artistic instrumentalism and hypocrisy in the end might be enough for some to turn away from or condemn Ice Watch, since the means of production and associated environmental impact are in tension with the ecological aims of the work. It is plausible, however, that its aesthetic value, which emerges from perceptual, multisensual experience, combines with beauty, tragedy, grief, guilt, and a collective sense of responsibility towards the natural environment. It may furthermore compel us to consider our own actions and hypocrisies, both collectively and individually, with an aim towards virtuous appreciation and sustainability. So, it's... The Body of the Condemned. On 2 March 1757, Damiens the Regicide was condemned to make the amende honorable before the main door of the Church of Paris, where he was to be taken and conveyed in a cart wearing nothing but a shirt, holding a torch of burning wax weighing 2 pounds, then in the said cart to the Place de Grève, where on a scaffold that will be erected there, the flesh will be torn from his breasts, arms, thighs, and calves, with red-hot pincers, his right hand holding the knife with which he committed the said parricide, burnt with sulfur, and on those places where the flesh will be torn away, poured molten lead, boiling oil, burning resin, wax, and sulfur melted together, and then his body drawn and quartered by 4 horses, and his limbs and body consumed by fire, reduced to ashes, and his final ashes thrown to the winds. Well, that's fancy. Hey, Ann, what's up? That is a fancy start to a book. I'll give you that. What's up, Ann? If you have to be more active, it might say aesthetics, the aesthetics of unsanctioned gym photography by me. Yes, exactly. That's true, too. That has, at least that has pictures in it. That one has diagrams. Vig, what's up? Happy Easter. Sure, happy Easter. Yeah. Well, this was Foucault. Yeah, that was Foucault. I knew someone did this in accounting, the parasite thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that is an exciting start to a book. All right. Okay, so this part of the paper presents Ice Watch's aesthetic relationality by also emphasizing the literal integration of natural aesthetic properties into Eliason's work. It came into existence at a time when public art Site-specific art, environmental art, installation art were already established, having challenged and changed our relationship with artworks contra the aesthetic autonomy of modernist art. After describing the work and my experience of it, I then highlight its importance by nestling its significance in a Deweyan analysis. You had a professor who loved Foucault a little too much. That's strange, but okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. They're kind of fun. Like, I'm sure there's a list somewhere of best book intros. Icewatch was a series of installations of 12 massively bluishly transparent iceberg chunks from Greenland filled with bubbles of trapped air from millennia ago, and of which the public could have situated multisensorial experiences and eventually see it melting, disappearing over time. They appeared in Copenhagen, Paris, and London, each with its own particular urban backdrop. At the Copenhagen City Hall Square, Eliasson aimed to highlight the fifth intergovernmental panel on climate change, assessment of the United Nations and its consequences. At the Place du Panthéon in Paris, it marked the occasion of COP21, the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. At both Bankside and outside Tate Modern and the City of London, outside Bloomberg's European headquarters, it marked the occasion of COP24 that took place in Poland. I'm not even going to try to say Polish stuff. Also marking the third anniversary of the Paris Agreement. Yes, and now we are hitting even hotter temperatures now. What is this? Few years later. So it's not, we have to do something about this. This is bad. The analysis focuses on the work as it was displayed in Paris, since this is where I had daily experience of it, but also because the physical urban environment in which it was displayed removes it to some extent from the rarefied art world context, bringing it closer to everyday life. Yeah, so this is kind of like urban art, or like, like graffiti, and sort of like that kind of art too. The fact that they brought an iceberg into Paris puts it in the very urban setting. In Paris, the artwork was placed in front of the Pantheon at the heart of I don't know how to say, something arrondissement, the city's Latin quarter, surrounded by historical, religious, medical, legal, and prestigious educational establishments from the Lycée Henri IV to the esteemed École Normale Supérieure and the Institut Marie Curie. It houses the Bibliothèque Sainte-Geneviève, namesake of Église Sainte-Geneviève, now the Pantheon. Today, the Pantheon is a temple where the grand historical figures lay in rest, including Victor Hugo, Émile Zola, Voltaire, Marie Curie, and most recently, Josephine Baker, among others. By placing the striking blocks of art at the heart of a culturally specific place, the artist brought attention to the importance of our engagement with the natural world, juxtaposing nature with urban civility and culture. So, okay, you can imagine a bit of an iceberg in the middle of a city. And that is, not what you would normally see in a city, at least. Because it's just part of it. I don't know why my Genevieve is hard to pronounce for the non-French speakers. I have no idea how to pronounce it. I'm just making stuff up. I apologize to everyone in the world that does not write in very boring American English, because I have no idea how to pronounce it. I don't have any problem pronouncing it. I just don't know how to pronounce it. Usually there are some words I can't, but I don't know if that's the way, I don't know how to pronounce it. It says Genevieve to me. Like, just reading it. So. Yeah, but my apologies to everyone else. Is just Genevieve. Genevieve. So, yeah, Lumpy has more of an A to it. Now, Lumpy doing it wrong? Yes, DCI, exactly. The other English speaker telling the French speaker how to say the French. How you doing, DCI? Okay, Eliasson alongside geologist Minnick Rosing and Kupik Kleist, former Prime Minister of Greenland, took the 12 chunks of free-floating glacial ice from Greenland's Nuuk Fjord, brought them to a Paris via tugboat and trucks, placed them in a circle in front of the Pantheon. Genevieve noted. Okay, Genevieve. Yeah. The circular pattern in the form of a clock face was deliberate, playing on the passing of geological time and the melting of the icebergs in real time. Jenny. We'll just go with Jenny. You said it right. See, I can say it. I just didn't know how to say it because I'm an ignorant New Yorker. Yeah. Eliasson wanted to tell the story of climate change to the city inhabitants by enabling them to come into direct contact with the collected icebergs, stand amongst them, touch, lick, feel their relative warmth by comparison and hear them crack and pop. As the ice melted, it released the purity of air trapped. Well, I don't know about purity. It just released the air trapped from 10,000 years ago, activating the imagination to engage with the slow and vast temporal dimension, a polar landscape that exceeds the bounds of perception itself. Would Jenny vive like a croissant? Yes, she would. Croissant. 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 Sorry. I like saying that. Imagine walking to the Pantheon at the beginning of December 2015 with the unknown expectation that you will soon encounter giant blocks of ice. You lift your head from your preoccupations only to see their grand, bright, dazzling presence on a dark winter evening. The Pantheon has been lit up for the evening and street lamps glow orange. Out of curiosity, you approach and take a closer look. You notice that there are 12 of them, and you're immersed in the cool air they give off. They are large enough to hug, walk amongst, even climb on. Contrasting with the pollution of the city, the air around them seems pure, sweet, oxygenated. Tadira says, we need to ask a real Frenchman with a baguette and a glass of wine in his hand, wearing a beret with the Eiffel Tower in the background. Yes. They just swear at us? Yeah, well, well, don't worry. New Yorkers will judge you, too. They won't, judge you, immediately, but they will still judge you. And we probably might swear to. Wear a striped shirt and a scarf, yes. We need, the most stereotypical French person ever. You've got, 4 dozen of those at work. My workspace has heavily recruited in France. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we just go get a real, stereotypical French person. Alright, you are visually attending to the blocks of ice, alternating focus on their individual and combined features. In touching it, you feel the coolness through your gloves. Do you have to wear gloves? Yeah, probably. You feel small by comparison with their grand stature and perhaps slightly disturbed by their circular arrangement. This is no ordinary experience, but a continuity of aesthetic experience in which aesthetic properties emerge for you, the perceiving subject. In attending to it, your experience is aesthetic because you have attended to its perceptible, non-aesthetic properties that combine and occasion a response in you. The subject that is mixed, both sensually pleasing and positive, and also disorienting and negative. Some of the concepts and terms used to describe what I experience are non-aesthetic, others aesthetic, and they're a mixture of the two, enabling me to communicate them with you. I mean, that is part of the difficulty here. How do you actually describe a work of art? I can describe the features of it, but that's not what it is for something to strike you. You have to say strike, as in you've actually been hit, something surprised you. So that there's a difficulty between saying and showing, of course. This relationship between me and the artwork combined in my immediate encounter with it, which was constituted by its features, my sensual experience and curiosity, and the thoughts and imagination brought about. My happening on and experiencing the work was different in character from my more ordinary daily walk to the metro, or from the possibility of the Pantheon being renovated, surrounded by scaffolding and construction tools, as would have been the case if ice walks had been placed in front of Notre Dame Cathedral after the fire in 2019. Experience is a term of perception, and perception and aesthetic experience are closely tied. Our modes of perception, our senses, provide us with an opening onto the world of objects that have properties perceivable by us, some of which are aesthetic, some less so. When we perceive something, we experience it. We see, hear, feel, or smell its features. Yeah, we're still waiting for smell-o-vision to become a thing. Wouldn't you like to smell all your Twitch streamers out there? Ice Walks was a work that played on all the senses, including body size, temperature, orientation, and balance. You see, this is interesting, though. See, what are the senses? Body size is not a sense. Temperature, you can say, is a sense. Orientation is kind of a sense, how you're oriented to things. And balance, you have a sense of balance. But, you see how this is already mixing things that aren't body senses. And that's part of the aesthetic experience, is that it does not actually conform to any simple measure. The various complex ways these senses compete and complement each other, other features prominently in everyday aesthetics of the natural environment, and site-specific and installation works of art that have advanced artistic practice, particularly in the last century. Such categorical knowledge of how perceptual properties correspond to the role of intellectual structures will be addressed in parts 2 and 3 below. Do we have a sense of senses? I mean, you have a rational sense, I guess you could say, that you think something is off. You can feel that something is off in the world. And so that would be a sense of senses, in the sense that something seems funny to you, something seems strange, and that could be a sense of uncomfortability, and that might be to it. How do VTubers smell? Well, I don't know. But see, that's the question. You know, like Valpo, that is actually, if the VTubers were to have a smell, or if there were actual like smells on Twitch and other streaming services, we had smell-o-vision. I wouldn't be surprised if people would be designing, custom smells, like custom perfumes. Like imagine that was a thing. Like every stream had its own custom smell, a custom perfume to go with different stuff. I'm sure there's a market for that, just as there's a market for custom perfumes. And like everything else, it would be, manufactured to the stream person. Like I was watching a VTuber, I got rated into them, and they had an alien VTuber. So like they had like a semi-human face on like an alien from the movie franchise Alien body. And so I could imagine them having some sort of like weird biomechanical smell to go along with that VTuber. And like then there's like other VTubers who are like, sea creatures, and they might have like a sea smell. But like I would assume it would be like everything else, a manufactured part of their manufactured persona. And first of all, I'm so glad you can't smell streamers. Well, that's the joke, and I'm sure 79% of them smell of old cigarette sweat and unidentified biosmells. Yeah. Or sadly identifiable biosmells. Okay. Acknowledgements. Let's see. This part of a book must have a particular significance for someone who ordinarily should never have written one. Oh yeah, we've looked at this before. This is fun. There's something tragic in achieving literacy to encounter time and again the disinterest of publishers and journals alike, and one's exclusion from the sites that give sense to the practices of culture, all of which ensure one's estrangement from the skills that make a simple gratitude possible. After so much unemployment and wastage of so much of my time, it's difficult to feel that what is written here has any value. Yeah, that's a great start to a book. I smell like books. Maybe a little bit. I mean, this room does. I have a bunch of books back there. So it's like, yeah. You're so sensitive to smells, it's insane. Yeah, I know a lot of people are very smell sensitive, and so they have to be careful about that stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, where are we in this paper? We're never going to get through this. That's fine. Let's see how much longer we have to actually get to. Yeah, we only have to get to here, so we're like a third through. And says, in the 30% might smell great, though. Yeah, well, if we ever get this, like, if there's ever like a little doohickey that like, can synthesize smells on demand, you could imagine like, having like a little USB thing that like could like, synthesize like different combinations of smell. That would be a very interesting thing to have, like everyone who could buy such a device and then have a custom smell going with, whatever you're doing. All your books locked up so the whole room doesn't smell like 100-year-old books. Yeah, but that's not the worst thing to smell either. Like, musty old book is not the worst smell in the world. Like, there's a lot of books there, and there's some old books over there. But, like, yeah, I mean, this room kind of just smells. This room doesn't really smell. And there's, like, books over here. Oh, there's actually a lot of books right here. But, yeah. So, this room might. It depends a lot on where they put the smellophone, even though the word makes sense. Yeah, well, I mean, this is Twitch. You have to assume that there's going to be a new category of smellophone inappropriate, like, I mean, it would go with the hot tubs and streamer stuff, but like then there's going to be like smell-o-vision, smellophone, like, bodily smells, and then like custom smells and other things. But, for all we know, this is a growth industry. We should be planning for like, the different sort of body smells, nature smells, like technical smells, like some sort of like machine smells. People might like that. But yeah. Aesthetics of smells. Yeah. We'll get there eventually. We will. I mean, there's no reason why that shouldn't happen. We've got like 3D printers, and the idea that we couldn't have a smell synthesizer to go with like whatever smell you wanted, like it could happen. And says you're having some issues with food smells coming to your new place and reduce your appetite even more. Having gastritis currently due to your stomach struggling with low medication, very low food. Smell of foam makes you want to throw up. Oh, that sucks. That sucks. I will say, I was saying earlier, a new Japanese ramen place just opened up. I'm very happy. I had it yesterday. It was pretty good. So it's like, I go in there. I ask them like, what should I get? Like, it's my first time here. She's like, well, what do you like? I like all food. I like food. So I'm like, all right. Well, they just said get the special, whatever it is. I said fine. I spent the extra $2 to get the special. It was good. So I'm happy with it. Yeah, but it sucks not being able to eat. I understand that. So okay. Anyway, but yeah, again, we're talking aesthetics today, and so the way like a smell hits you, and and if it makes you feel disgusted, that's very different than you'd be like, oh, I want to eat that. Like very different. We're talking food here. So it's like you want like the way certain things hit you matter. You just realize the Euro finals on. Hope England doesn't win, otherwise certain people here will be insufferable. Yeah. I guess we're rooting against England, although that does kind of mean you're rooting for Spain. I don't know how people feel about rooting for Spain, but you can always root against England. Okay. Indeed, Dewey himself celebrated aesthetic experience and value outside the cultural conventions of galleries and museums. And I keep hearing people pronounce museums as museums. It's so strange to me. They are not museums. They're museums. You better be That's funny. BRB screams would smell fucking awful. Yeah. Well, I pronounce it museums, and I've heard a lot of people from New England and some from like people just south of me, like DC area. Museum. I don't understand. There's no A. This EU sound is never a sound. It's not an A sound. Read with a German accent. I don't know how to read in German accent. No idea. Okay. Artworks for Dewey had been deadened by conventional museum-going experience. Instead, he preferred what the senses revealed with an aesthetic realm, the combined qualities of the artwork and those we might bring to it. You drank LaCroix at the museum. Yeah, exactly. Sound clip, yeah. Since art was a part of experience in general, a more comprehensive theory of experience in everyday life might provide a richer theory of art. Recognizing aesthetic value in the everyday world around us would contribute to reconciling art and everyday life. Dewey's theoretical insistence on restoring art to life meant releasing it from its institutional domain and towards both the incorporation of its practices and artifacts into the heart of everyday life and the internalist conception of what aesthetic experience feels like from the inside. This hope for integrating art into the more general experiential flow of experience contributed to the evolution both of postmodern approaches to art and creative art practice that stepped out of institutional settings. For example, Arnold Berliant resisted the idea that the aesthetic contemplation of artworks was fundamentally distinct from more widely conceived aesthetic experiences. Moreover, artists turned to artistic practices that resisted, played with, or ignored institutional settings, of which Ice Watch is a descendant. Dewey resisted the rise of the compartmental conception of fine art, which for him also marked Western imperialism and colonization through the reinvention of our relationship to art. This entailed the foregoing of a new relationship with the material world. For these, balance and proportion can be present only when, as in the conduct that has grace or dignity, the act is controlled by an exquisite sense of the relations which the act sustains, its fitness to the occasion and situation. While for him the crisis in art was linked to the crisis of the subject in the world, the relationality that emerged from perceiving the world affirmed the state of the surrounding world and the everyday. The idea wasn't new. How an artist could come to represent the external world had always been a challenge. Do they sell LaCroix in French Canada, Lumpy? Yes. That's a great question. Eliason forced visitors of Ice Walk to encounter nature's own properties, the very properties painting had sought to represent and abstract away from or dematerialize with the intention of engaging real-world properties. For now, it suffices to conclude this section by making the more general point that, in addition to the literal inclusion of natural aesthetic properties, Ice Walk also required relationality between artwork and subject, the multiple and cross-modal senses, bodily orientation, and immersion in the work. In doing so, the imaginatively sustained polar landscape and vividly brought to bear the negative tragic sense of sadness and guilt as the iceberg melted over time in the heart of the city. Vino Poet, not gonna lie, just randomly got here and I'm glad I did. This is interesting. Oh, welcome in, Vino. Yeah, this is what I do. I'm a philosopher, which is such a weird fucking thing to be and say. But generally on stream, I rant and we discuss with chat, and then I read philosophy stuff and we try to explain it, and see if it's worth anything. And today we're doing aesthetics. So yeah. So we're talking some aesthetics, and back to the construction of this paper. That whole beginning part that Maddie was criticizing earlier, I mean, I agree with Maddie. It was really an unnecessary entryway into the paper. Unnecessary doesn't mean it was bad. It just means they could have done something different. It wasn't critical to anything they're saying now. All of this stuff here that they're finally getting into is way more interesting than the way they started off. It just seems that the way this person writes, they really like lists. Yeah. Is philosophy worth anything in nihilism? No, of course not, because they're nihilistic. But yeah. Oh, it's awesome. You like that? Well, cool. Welcome in. So.
I salute you.
Thank you for the follow. Yeah. But yeah, so. I mean, is nihilism worth anything in nihilism? Probably not. But I mean, if you assume nihilism is kind of more of a state than a philosophy, if you're just like in a nihilistic state, then that's just the way of being. And then, of course, philosophy doesn't matter, nihilism doesn't matter, but that's a state you're in. That's not something like an active consideration then. So, I mean, you could try to be like, well, it's self-contradictory, but like not if it's a state. Then it's like, well, I'm sitting at the moment. There's nothing wrong with me saying, like, I'm thinking about sitting and then actually sitting. They're two different things. So, like, the philosophy of nihilism isn't worth anything, but you may just be nihilistic. At least that's how I parse these sorts of problems. Okay. Talking too much, I'm getting lightheaded. Virtue appreciation through perceptual intellectual awareness. Ice Watch sought the integration of art practice in everyday life, as John Dewey would have it, seeks the affirmation of the external or surrounding world, linking it with making, shaping, and reshaping artistic production and aesthetic experience. The experience of passers-by leaves no doubt as to the surprise, wonder, and affection that emerged, in addition to the sadness and guilt as the ice melted. Ice Watch's glacial mass, luminosity, and coolness imaginatively and positively recalled nature's grandeur and polar landscapes. Its gradual dissolution, loss of majesty, inevitable link with climate change, loss of habitat, and rising seas negatively associated with what we know to be true with what has been demonstrated by scientific experts in real life. It's like doing but not doing, I suppose. Yeah. Well, this is... If you're going to talk art, exactly what is going on, it's not like philosophers have a good definition or one that everyone agrees with. And so whatever you're getting a description from a certain philosophical and aesthetic point of view, which is fine. It's what we got. So the idea that like if you have these large bits of glacier just lying around a city in a certain spot, it's going to do something. So you're letting, and it recalls also like sort of like the sand sculptures from like the Buddhist sand sculptures, where it's inherently ephemeral. There is no way to make it a sort of a permanent artwork. The artwork is in part that it is going to be destroyed at a certain point through either wind or whatever else. So it's like that is part of it, that you have to know that like times are changing, because like the change is part of the art too. And so even though you could say that, but in saying it, you're never going to actually, saying it doesn't do it. But like in the actual experience of it changing over time is part of the artwork. Yeah. Okay, whether one could veridically perceive these epistemic dimensions of Ice Watch to include its art historical context is a moot point. How externally oriented perception or aesthetic perception linked to knowledge plays out in discussions about the extent to which perception is permeable, that is how concepts, belief, expectations, or other cognitive elements influence experience. Yeah, like this person loves these lists. They keep doing it. I don't know if that's helpful in the paper, but like they keep doing it. This is relevant to discussions about the criteria for the objectivity of aesthetic judgment in both art and nature that we turn to below. I follow Stokes in thinking that general theories of perception exist to support both sides of the debate, in addition to thinking that there is no reason to assume that they are incompatible. We might instead invoke a twofoldness of perceptual intellectual engagement, an idea that parallel Richard Wollheim's thought in Art and Its Objects, that twofoldness is illusory in the sense of the experience of the representational surface of a painting and the content represented. Gregory Curry addressed a similar thought about double perceptual intellectual awareness in a talk given in 2018 on literary narrative, agency, and cause in stories about the fictional representation of a person and the truth of our experience of them in reading a novel. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot done on, the narrator, not actually saying what's going on or not being a reliable source of information. So, how do you actually parse what is said versus how it's said versus, the content and, what is the content there? Perceptual intellectual engagement is both externally directed and solicits virtues like perceptual and intellectual curiosity, openness, charitability, and honesty in the formation of judgments and beliefs that contribute to forming excellence in character. In the aesthetic context, Matthew Kiernan wrote that a true appreciator is likely, amongst other things, to possess virtues such as courage, open-mindedness, and imaginativeness. Virtue approaches to appreciation and aesthetic experience have reemerged in recent years. Yeah, I wonder is this really a hot topic in philosophy where just virtue all the things, because we have got virtue epistemology, and so I guess we have virtue aesthetics now too. Maybe we should do that, I don't know. Here I sketch out how a virtue appreciation approach that is serious about perceptual intellectual awareness as it could apply to Ice Watch. My motivation is first related to the thought that one of the reasons we care about the natural environment is due to its aesthetic value. The aesthetic value, even if controversial at times, is a good that merits our attention and respect, rather than being held up as a reason for deep skepticism. My second motivation is in taking care to seriously engage with cultural, social, artistic, or human relational interaction with environment. I was watching one of the more recent Terminator movies, and they're just not good, some of them. And I'm like, what happens is I get pulled out of the, the story, the narrative. I'm just looking at the scene. I'm like, this is just not well done. So it's you can of course do this in good art, figure out how they're working it and how the different pieces, go together. But then I was watching this movie the other day, night, just for a little bit. I was just like, this is so silly, so silly. So I'm just looking at what they're kind of trying to do, even though they're not doing it. And so that's bad art. It's where you're not actually engaging with the content, but with just their sort of hope that they get to the content. You saw one where Skynet was scouring everyone? Yeah, it was so silly. This one had John Connor as some sort of weird hybrid, and I'm just it could, for all I know, he was this weird hybrid guy in some alternate timeline. It's fine, but it was just not done well, Maddie says, and the whole movie would have fallen apart if the people had just worn a sheet or a bandana around their faces. Yeah, again, easy plot holes. This is not very interesting. Many things could just this is one of the problems with all these sci-fi stuff, that the bad guys are so overpowered and they have to come up with some really stupid reason for keeping them within a way that they're not going to just win immediately. So this always happens where you have to come up with some ad hoc reason why, it just won't, they just don't win immediately. And it's terrible. It's in this one, the bad guy, because I'm not going to give spoilers, the bad guy has to slow people down to allow something to happen. And the bad guy's there. The bad guy could have just cut their feet off if he doesn't want them to die. He could have just done something stupid, shoot them in the foot. Then they won't really have the ability to move fast enough. They're not going to die. They just won't have the ability to just do anything about the problem. And he could have just shot them in the foot very quickly. It wouldn't have been a problem. It's but he couldn't kill them for various reasons. But then again, he just, it was stupid. What's up, human? Salutations. Terminator, Jenny Smith, yeah. It's it was, you have to have, this is one of the things I think is problems lately. Maybe it was always a problem and I just notice it more now. The writing is so fucking terrible on a lot of these movies that this is one of the reasons I don't watch as much as I used to. Maybe because I know the stories now, but the fact that I know the stories and I like it's just not that clever is like maybe when I was younger I didn't know them and now I know the stories. It's because like now they haven't come up with anything new. So I just don't know if it's like me or it's like yeah. Because I remember the good ones from back in the day, yeah, but I'm like anti-nostalgic. Maybe I don't remember the good ones. It was just my first experience with them. You know? Yeah, you don't really remember the stupid ones? Yeah, so that's part of the issue. What do we got here, Vipers? You're gonna have to tell me the audio levels.
Смотрите на меня. Молодец, молодец, девочка. Что это? Что это? Черт, черт! Что такое? Срань господня! Твою мать, она ползет сюда! Черт, черт, черт! За год до этого. Надпись на щите. CSI Style делает замечательные ложки с 50-го года. Lazy Square представляет...
Yes, exactly. So that one, yeah, they said they had to explain how the Terminator did not, wasn't able to make like mechanical devices. He could only make stabbing objects, and that made for interesting plot points. But then later ones, the Terminators are way more powerful, and they can make more complex devices. And just like that's exactly the problem. They could do all the stuff that we just can't do now, or we just. It wouldn't matter. And that's part of the issue is like nowadays we have drones and we're going this way. It's like if the Terminator could just split into like 1 million drones, because of course they will be able to. The idea that we could actually stop like 30 drone, like future drones, not drones we have now, but like drones from like the future, like there's no chance in hell. Yeah, the culture mostly erases them. Yeah. So I probably shouldn't have had the sound because it had the Terminator sounds on it. I hope it doesn't like mute the video. The drones in Spy were actually well done, even if the movie was silly. I don't like which Spider-Man. There's 1 million fucking Spider-Mans now, but like, yeah, like that's gonna be the case. Like I watched my Ghost in the Shell, and there was some more recent Ghost in the Shells where like they had like future drones, and those things are fucking scary. Like we're gonna have drones like that in the future, and we are not going to be able to stop them easily. Like it's just not going like. Political assassination is going to be so hard to stop. Like anything is going to be stopped. Mysterio, the only one with drones. Okay, I don't watch a whole lot of Spider-Man movies, so I don't know. But okay, I'll take your word for it. But like, yeah. So yeah, but again, this is a problem with writing and stuff. And also, I realized something when I was younger. When you're younger, you get more curated stuff because, adults and like other people with like a half a brain to them be like, watch this, not watch that. Now there's no one I have that be like, is saying watch this, not watch that. Of course, you got friends that like make recommendations, but like back in the day, everything you watch is more curated. And so you don't have the, you don't have to suffer through crappy stuff. Nowadays, of course, we have like review websites, but again, now everything is so hard to like judge. It's hard to know. I will give you me movie recs. Unfortunately, I appreciate that, but my list of to-do things is so long that I'm not taking recommendations from anything for anybody, but I will ask if I want them. Thank you, though. You're a movie nerd? Okay, good to know. Yeah. Ann says, yeah, in 20 years, nobody's going to think Taylor Swift is worth paying along very much to. Yeah, that happens all the time. Like, that's right. People love someone for a time, and then, a little bit, society moves on, and it's just like, it was great at the time, and then when they're gone, it's just like, it's no big deal. So, it's going to happen. But, like, that happens all the time. But you don't always know who that is ahead of time. You don't always know. Like, this happens in philosophy discussions too. People be like, oh, this person's got the greatest philosophy, like awesome philosophy. And then 50 years later, it'd be like, no one talks about them anymore. There was someone I remember, speaking of Dewey, I think his name was Collingwood. And Collingwood was like one of these major philosophers of the day. And then people don't really talk about Collingwood anymore. And it's like, because if you're talking aesthetics, Collingwood was the name. I think I even had the book out at some point, but yeah, like talking aesthetics. Yeah, RJ Collingwood, something along those lines. All right. Okay. Environmental virtue aesthetics has recently been put forward as an alternative approach to aesthetic judgments about environment. It captures the role of the aesthetic as a constitutive good, not only in terms of experience, but in terms of creating a meaningful life and meaningful human nature relationships. Virtue aesthetics had previously emerged in the context of art. For example, David Woodruff has written, quote, "A complete aesthetic theory would include, among other things, an explanation of aesthetic properties and a definition of art. Starting with an aesthetically relevant motivation, a virtue aesthetic theory would give hierarchy to aesthetic virtues, relating them where applicable to intellectual and moral virtues. These virtues would be the basis for explanation of actions relating to the objects that are appreciated. Finally, such a theory could provide the framework for defining and explaining the nature of art based on appreciation." No. This is this paper I'm reading. One of the things I do here is I read philosophy and try to explain it. I'm a philosopher. And so like this is a work of published art by Virtue Aesthetics and Sustainability by N. Hall. I am not N. Hall. Falpa says Taylor Swift fandom is sociologically interesting. Studies on that might outlast the music. Yeah, it might be. Yeah. So no. This is not mine, although I am a published philosopher and I have written stuff on stream before that has actually, there is stuff I've worked on stream that is now forthcoming. So, but that is not what we're doing right now. This is what I normally do is I read something, we talk about it. You know, sometimes it's better. Some papers are better than others. Some get more discussion than others, but you know, such is streaming. So, indeed, Woodruff, insight, sensitivity, and vision enable the full appreciation of an artwork. Peter Goldie has argued that the virtues of art production and art appreciation are as much genuine virtues as aesthetical and intellectual virtues. Your contribution to the orgy is forthcoming. Why are you forthcoming? Why are you coming forth? That's weird. Like, why won't you come first? Or why like 1, 2, 3, 4? Or is that just the British spelling of forthcoming? Anne says the studies on that are out already. It's nothing new. Beatles were first, then you're a gentleman. You're so good, Vipers. You're so good. Then Michael, the BSB, she's polishing the formula. Well, fair enough. He likes to churn the butter. That's true too, DCI. Yeah. True gentleman, Vipers gratitude. We appreciate that. All right. On motivation, Goldie supports an internalist position by reference to John McDowell, stating that even though facts make concepts intelligible, the application of concepts is not explainable only by appeal to facts. And Tindarios is freaking out now. All right, we're sorry, Tindarios. We've scared the your refined sensibilities. Tom Roberts, for his part, explored the thought that a virtue theory of aesthetics places a special emphasis on the artist and her character traits, skills, dispositions, and motivations by carving taxonomic distinction among types of aesthetic virtue and answering the question of why artworks that are the products of aesthetic virtue matter to us. As in J-Rock fans, it's about being cultish. Yeah, I mean, this, I guess, I don't know enough about this, but this is interesting. I mean, if you want to go hang out with Anne and talk sociology, that is something Anne knows about. Like, Anne, a shout out. Anne is a sociologist and political scientist, does many things online. But, like, yeah, this is an interesting point. It's like, what is the cult of music? And, like, how does that, like, affect people, like, your identity and things like that? So, yeah, that's more a sociological question, but it's a very good question to ask. So, yeah, I don't know. But like, yeah, what is the cult of music that gets developed around bands and like musicians? Yeah. You view music as a double-edged sword? What kind of sword there, human? Parasocial relationships are everything for money making. Yes, welcome to Twitch and all the other streaming services. That is a good point. And for people who don't know the term parasocial, it's a lopsided relationship. So if you have a friendship, like in person, usually you have as much access to them as they have to you because like it's in person. But online and sort of with celebrities, you know more about the celebrity than the celebrity knows about you because, you know, they're reported on more. So that's the sort of parasocial relationship. It's an imbalance in access, epistemic access. And so when you're an online personality, like here, you can see me, you can hear me, you can hear what I say, you can see like my stream. I can only see what you write in chat, so I don't know what most of you look like. Of course, there's some streamers out there I've had interaction with. I know something about some of you, but like you inherently get more information than I get about you during my stream, and so this is like a parasocial relationship because of the imbalance in what the access of it that you have to me in this case. Yeah. So, and how that is, and so I guess if you want to talk about how that is capitalized upon in our capitalist society to make money, it's like a thing. Yeah. Anne says she's fascinated by K-pop at the moment. It's an all new for you, but oh my god, it's taken to insane levels there. Yeah, the difference is that we can see everything these people do nowadays. In the 90s, we had teen magazines. Yeah, but I mean, that's what you had. You have the media of the day, but now we have the internet, so we have all the stuff. Yeah, the BTS sort of phenomena is like this very huge sort of industry around these like cultural bands and stuff. So yeah, of course you had like teen magazines, you would have other sorts of publications, MTV that would give you access to like, behind the scenes, things like that. MTV Cribs, go see the musicians' houses. And before that you had Houses of the Lives of the Rich and Famous. So that was like the predecessor where you'd have like, the magazines of the day. Industrialized bean flicking. Well, that's what we have. We have massive, like, there's always been pornography, but now we've got it like at a massive scale. And then also you have celebrity porn stars and things like that, and so that is taken to other stuff. And of course you've got like hot tub streams here on Twitch, and then the people use that sort of like sexualized Twitch streaming, which of course it's still PG-13 because of the site, but it's like, people skirt the edge of what can be shown here to get them to go to other sites where they have more freedom to do more variety of streaming. Yeah. So it's like, how do we, how do we monetize this? It's all monetization. Celebrity corn stars were always around. You just didn't know that word. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's always been a thing. It's just celebrity is celebrity, but again, it's this parasocial relationship where you know more about them than they know about you, and that setup for some reason creates a way to make like a money-making scheme out of that, because people want to know more about the person. Like getting to know a person in some sense is a very powerful motivator. So, and how that like the information is given out. Sneer says, I got a butt instead of a face. Well, that's exciting. Other than that, quite normal, but here's a picture of my cousin. Oh, cool. We get to see a picture of his cousin. Notice me, senpai. Exactly. Notice me, senpai. What do we got? Oh, wow. Look at that. Right there. Tindarius' cousin. Cool. That's funny. Yeah, so... Hey, and that's how this business runs. Like, I don't ask people for like donations or anything, but like that's how Twitch runs. People who are full-time Twitch streamers need to, encourage, or at least not discourage, people giving them money. And so Twitch, of course, has bits, subscriptions, and other sorts of like little things. And then there's alternative income sources. And so Twitch is basically gamifying chat to make that into a money-making scheme. Yeah. But there's other ways to do it. More possible things. And Ivan's probably bored. Yeah, well, he is trying to, like... Scientists have discovered a pig butt worm whose farts glow green. That's lovely. So that's a worm right there. Very exciting. Yeah. I mean, he's just trying to integrate us all into his collective consciousness. You asked me what kind of sort of general direction? Yeah. Well, I mean, the real question was, you said something about art, what was it, music cutting both ways? Well, what were the two ways? Like, what direction was it cutting? I mean, general direction, yes, but like, if you're making a more specific point or not. Like, yeah, of course, the music can do multiple things, but did you have anything more you want to add to that? Okay. Okay, so more recently, Roger Puivet, like Roberts, placed virtue aesthetics at the crossroads of metaphysics and epistemology, arguing that the objects in this world have sensitive and intentional properties. They signify something, while products of human activity have meaning because of human intention, deriving meaning from sensitive properties. Natural objects have intentional properties attributed to them through sensitive properties. Yeah, so we can like project onto these things. And Vipers is just a leprechaun. Wow. Wow. Calling him a leprechaun. That's, that's, I don't know. I don't know, man. Environmental virtue aesthetics also promote the importance of aesthetic value, ethical value in terms of human nature flourishing and interdependence, the critical analysis of harmonies and tensions between aesthetic value and ethical value, and the importance of our motivations towards appreciation. This person likes their semicolons and lists way too much. It just seems like the style of their writing. Ants is accurate. Viper says, there's only one part of me that's leprechaun and I can't say which in polite company. What, your pot of gold? Yeah, it's got a lot of gold. Yeah, I knew it, Tindarius. Yeah, you should not mention that you're rich on Twitch because people will hit you up for money then, and you don't want to get that. I understand. Hey, Prof, how you doing? What's going on? I'm doing a rare daytime stream because it's too hot out here, and I figured I'd stream now, and I might go out to dinner later. So, how you doing? The writer's probably a non-native English speaker. Yeah, that might be the case. But Maddie was criticizing this style of writing earlier before, and I get the point. Maybe they're English speaker, but they're just using lists way too much. There's no need for making writing in this style. Anyone who's rich needs to gift you 1,000 subs in your chat immediately. Exactly. So, this is a while ago, it was last year, but I saw someone drop 150,000 on a music streamer last year. I think maybe 2 years. Spain scored, yes. Yeah. Rooting against the English, yes. But yeah, so I've seen it happen, and everyone the person's still around, but no one begs them for money because it's a very nice chat, and I'm not anyone in that community, so I can't see if people are banning other people. I can't see if someone gets banned for hassling this person. But yeah. It's typical of more romance languages. Okay, so that's interesting then. Maybe it is a cultural thing. Anne is an incubus? Could be. Yeah. Incubus? Yeah, incubus, not succubus. I was trying to remember who was what. But yes. You're too poor? Exactly. Yeah, so we're talking some aesthetics. If anyone doesn't know Prof, he's another philosophy streamer. Currently, he's been doing some lore videos for Elden Ring, which has blown up. So he's got something probably close to 200,000 views on his last lore video. So yeah, so that's cool. Give Prof a shout out. So if you like Elden Ring, Soulsborns, and chatting some philosophy, go hang out with Prof for Prof. Yeah. So what were we doing? Yeah. Okay. Respect is central and seen as operating not only based on facts, but our capacities of perception, imagination, sympathetic attention. Appreciation links importantly to what we experience both in the narrow perceptual sense, but also to more than what we factually know. In this way, I'm losing it already. There we go. Thank you, Vipers, for giving us nice visuals to remember, mnemonics. We appreciate your mnemonics. Good. Okay. In this way, environmental virtue ethics ties perceptual and intellectual experience, hence the requirement for perceptual intellectual double awareness sketched above. Share, yes, we like share. In love after love. It also ties to motivation, whether to the appreciator's motivation or to the indeterminate or somewhat determinate forces behind the appearance of natural environments. Interesting is the extent to which these virtue approaches overlap when considering environmental art and the flexibility they afford the harmonies and conflicts between aesthetic and moral values as it relates to ecology and environment. This is because environmental art is often seen to be damaging to the natural environment, with some artists thought to be indifferent to the negative implications of their work. And that's always a point. This also annoys me. if you're gonna do anything in this world, you have to like break some eggs to like make an omelet. There is no way to like get by being like completely detached from the rest of the world. You're going to like have to do something. And the idea that like you're gonna do nothing, there's like I think it's the Jains out in India maybe, who like they are so sort of like restricted and aesthetic from the rest of the world that like they won't even walk so that they wouldn't step on an ant and kill it. But it's like, what are they really? I mean, that's fine, but like if anyone else is like trying to do anything in the world outside of like aestheticism, what are you actually going to accomplish? You have to just live in the world. And it's like the more you do, the more you're going to change the earth. It's like it's hard to like understand what the limits are. Yeah. Okay. So, is Ice Walk an aesthetic and moral affront to nature? Points of contention have emerged in the general context of ecology and environment as to the importance of scientifically informed ethical value over and above culturally informed aesthetic value. The issue of artistic and aesthetic autonomy is relevant to Ice Walk. Curious about Ice Walk in relation to artistic and aesthetic autonomy is the inclusion of brute natural properties that the artist in the 20th century spent time worrying about how to mimic or represent, given the desire to demarcate their work, wider social and cultural factors, and how to reconcile lived experience with artistic practice and everyday experience to include aesthetic experience. So I guess this person could have just painted a painting, and if they were really, really, really good at like painting, then, you know, they could, you know, have done the same sort of experience in a painting. But like, that's hard. That's really fucking hard. And it's like, is that actually the same experience? It's kind of tough to say. The point of contention regarding Ice Walks, irrespective of the artist's heritage or aesthetically experiencing it, is its carbon footprint. It took 30 tons of CO2 to transport the 80 tons of ice from Nuuk Kangerlua Fjord to Paris using 6 refrigerated containers brought by ship from Nuuk to Aalborg, Denmark, and then by truck to Paris. According to the climate neutral group, this would be equivalent to driving 30 gasoline-powered cars for 6 months each, 30 electric-powered cars 1 year each, 1080 Paris-Amsterdam round trips by train, or 39 Amsterdam-Rome round trip flights. Yeah, this is what we're, what's it called? This is we don't like Taylor Swift because she's not conservative enough, so we're going to yell at her for using her plane all the time because we know that annoys liberals. The executive carbon footprint and sustainability summary of Ice Walk was prepared by Julie's Bicycle, a nonprofit organization that collaborated with Eliasson on the project, calculated that the carbon footprint was equivalent to 30 people flying return Paris to Nuuk. Ice Walk then is a complex and problematic case because it raises a question about aesthetics and ethical judgments concerning the environment and ecology, in addition to the ethical dimensions about experiencing it as good. It also raises questions about the moral integrity of the artist. Yeah, I mean, so this is what we're considering particularly environmentally harmful. I'm not sure I like this argument because what counts as particularly environmentally harmful is very relative. Most paints will kill you. They're like massively toxic, like unbelievably toxic. And so it's like, all right, we're going to kill ourselves. And like somehow that's okay that you're using really toxic paint and like killing yourself and those like nearby you is okay. You got a random thought. Well, do tell, Vipers. But like when we're making environmental stuff in our current milieu, that is somehow bad. You know, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. So it's like, yes, it's bad, but what makes it particularly bad? Alan Carlson has argued against aesthetic autonomy and that much environmental art is an affront to nature. For him, viewing or appreciating art as art is a mistake since correctly judging nature aesthetically is achieved by perceiving it as nature and using the right scientific categories and not as art. Who the fuck knows what the right scientific categories or what perceiving nature as nature is? Like, pretentious motherfucker. Viper says 1/365th of all people who have died did so on 21st of September, which means that their loved ones hears that earth, wind, and fire song and they burst into tears. Yeah, sure. Your PC just like blanked? I mean, anyone who says stuff like that read Kant and thought they understood it. Yeah. That's fair. Like, this is a semi-Kantian style take, and it's not a good one. So yeah, they thought they understood it. They did not. But yeah, so this style of criticism annoys me, but that's fine. Okay, we are changing an object from the kind of object it is and therefore making an ontological mistake. Yeah, this is, as Prof saying, this is like, oh, you've changed it. It's like somehow it's like fundamental nature, but like it's silly. Oh dear, and the light angle is getting bad for me, so you might start seeing like splotches of like sun on my face. So we'll see. If I do I have my hat? I do have my hat. I have my obnoxious hat, so yeah. It doesn't even get much better in German. I once asked a Heidegger, German speaker about Heidegger, and he says, no, it sounds just as bad in the German. It's like, oh, I thought it might even sound okay in German. They're like, no, Heidegger sounds terrible in German. Okay. Perceiving nature as art is committing a category error that leads to incorrect aesthetic judgment. What the fuck who the fuck knows what correct aesthetic judgment is? So weird. In this view, then, Ice Watch is both an ethical and aesthetic affront, since its creation is about having seen the icebergs as art. Who the fuck knows what... Oh, sorry, I can just keep saying the same shit over, but it's very silly. The artist and the perceiver who positively valences the work are blameworthy, since the category of art ought not to be applied to natural objects. While his essay predates Ice Watch, Carlson cites such work as Michael Hazer's Double Negative that displaced 240,000 tons of rhyolite and sandstone, and Robert Smithson's Asphalt Rundown, constructed by dumping a truckload of asphalt down the side of a quarry, amongst other artworks that conjured up industrial operations and pollution. Heidegger in German is much better and much clearer than Kant. Oh, okay, well, at least clearer than Kant. But yeah, the idea, the thing I was mentioning was that, like, when you say like the trees or like the group, like the gatherers gathering, like that's how they do stuff. Like the trees or like, you know, the cars. It's like it's carring. It's like, what's that mean? Viper says German sounds like a typewriter chewing aluminum foil being kicked down the stairs. Yeah, accurate. So yeah. Others have focused on the moral dimensions of the work. They see the work as ironic, paradoxical, and morally problematic, given the ends it aimed to achieve and the means that were used to achieve them. For example, Nanicelli writes, yet Ice Watch's reported 30-ton carbon footprint is significant, and one might justifiably wonder about whether sending an expedition crew to harvest ice blocks in Greenland was an ethically justified means by which to attempt this artistic statement. Thomas Koblizek writes, the ethical flaw in the production of the latter was identifiable in the background of the very same attitude that it criticizes ecologically irresponsible behavior, and so made the work open to criticism concerning its attitude. It could be seen as an installation of hypocrisy. With Kant, it's like, what did I just read? Why is the sentence structured so weird? Yeah. Kant is not what people consider the best writer. Heidegger is like more modern prose, but like it's hard to parse. But like, yeah, you can parse Heidegger. Okay, so they're criticizing like it for being hypocritical. You know, I wonder if the artist knew about this at the get-go, that would be very environmentally expensive, and so may have even courted some of the hypocrisy for the notoriety, you know? That is not the worst thing in public relations, is to be notorious also. First time you read, you're like, oh, that's only 20% I got. Yeah, a lot of philosophy is like that, though, unfortunately. Try to do better, but not all of it makes sense. Or at least you have to understand more about the background, the context, and the other things they're responding to actually understand it. Okay. Carlson, Nanicelli, and Koblizek bring into focus the issue of moral responsibility of the artist. He was probably worse for you? Yeah. Well, you know, to each their own, too. Like, I only read stuff in translation because I can only read crappy English, yeah. Yeah, all of Western philosophy. Fair and fair. But hey, that's what we do here. We discuss it. We try to actually figure out what is going on here. So, reading is quite often the only way you have access to some of these ideas. And I mean, sometimes now we have, of course, YouTube videos and stuff like that. But this is really the only way to do it. And it takes a lot of work. It just does. Yeah, see, I'm getting block some of the reflections here. Okay. Yeah, I've got my dragon hat. Okay. Regardless of how... Alright, so indeed, Eliason, Hazer, and Smithson present difficult cases. Regardless of how one adjudicates the works, it ought not be said that they have displayed indifference to the negative implications of their work. Eliason and his collaborators have gone some ways to provide information about their carbon footprint and impact. Yeah, so this person knew what they were doing. They said, look, it's going to be expensive, but maybe they thought it was worth it. Heiser had grown up in the Nevada desert and was anti-materialist and wishing to restore art to pure aesthetics, resisted the art world's market focus on in his desire to create 30-foot wide and 50-foot deep cut or negative space in the desert sandstone. Smithson's writings demonstrated a desire to shore up the metaphysical and imaginative dimension of engaging with the natural world away from abstractions and concepts, and decried the excesses of industry and the pouring of asphalt to create roads. It should related be noted that the work exists on a brownfield site. I don't know what that means. Tindari says, with Hegel, you have to read like 20 pages nonstop to get to the context. Yeah, I mean, Hegel is particularly difficult. Tindari says, since so widespread, he uses nested sentences. Yeah, Hegel is particularly difficult. Yeah. And it's even to get the context is one thing, then to understand it is something else, because Hegel is both philosophically and just philosophically difficult in his content and difficult in his writing style. All right, there are at least three differences that set Swatch apart from double negative and asphalt rundown. 1, the displacement of natural objects to a different location. 2, a difference in the aesthetic properties of ice rather than sandstone or asphalt. And 3, an explicit desire to make an eco-environmental statement about climate change. With Hegel, you need someone else to explain it to. Yeah, I mean, that's most of us. There's very few Hegel scholars out there that can be like, I get this. And I've told the story before, but even Hegel scholars don't understand Hegel. I took Hegel as an undergrad, and someone raised their hand and asked the professor, who was a Hegel scholar, a respected Hegel scholar, to explain something. And so they said, could you explain this better? I don't understand it. The professor stops, thinks for a second, and then starts pacing around the room. So he's like making a loop, like he's going around the room. He walks around to the other side of the room and says, the day before Hegel died, 2 men understood Hegel. Hegel and God. Then Hegel died. And there is no more explaining certain passages in Hegel. We just don't know what Hegel meant. It's only either, so we just go ask Prof. That's easy. Only Prof or Prof gets Hegel. And then as always, there's a return to Hegel. Hegel's #1 fan on Twitch too. She's amusing. So yeah. But I guess Prof understands Hegel, so we have our Hegel scholar here. So there we go. Geistbusters. That's terrible. We got Hegel, and I don't even know who these people are. I can't see. Who you gonna call? Geistbusters. You trust your bro Marx in that case? Yeah, just stick up. You can stick with Marx mostly. Best roomies, yeah. The Prof just calls Zizek. Yeah, well, if that works, that works too. Just be like, yeah, Zizek, explain this to me. All right. So what unites the three of them, however, is that they point to what hurts: consumerism, commercialism, and the tenacity of industrial power, a collective responsibility that concerns these aspects of human life. Yeah, and this is the issue nowadays. If we had no problems in the climate, no one would give a shit about someone overusing a little bit of resources. It would be like, well, that'll be, fine in a year or two. Like we'll have recovered. But we have a problem. So now it's like, how dare you do this? And you'll just start to see people criticizing the AI boom. Artificial intelligence requires huge amounts of computers to run. And no one was criticizing like Google or Microsoft or Facebook for running AI until recently. You're only just starting to see, well, how much electricity does all this AI processing actually take? But they have better marketing, because this used to be the criticism against Bitcoin. Well, it takes a lot of electricity and you're making an environmental mess. Well, this is just marketing at this point. Valpa says, the phenomenology is basically a Souls-like, all that Geist. God damn it. Yeah, this is why all the Continentals love the fucking Souls-like games. They're just like, it's all just philosophy. It's all the same shit. Yeah, what was it? Luminous Bloom had the number of streams doing Holderlin and Bloodborne, like the Holderlin interpretation of Bloodborne. Hegel is the Dark Souls of philosophy. Yeah, that's what it seems like people are saying. So, yeah, I mean, he did Holderlin and Bloodborne, and then we've got Dark Souls in philosophy on Hegel and Kant and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm not a continentalist. I don't really know that stuff. I do a mess in... I'm a very sloppy analytic philosopher, and that's what I mostly am. Well, I like to say I'm a promiscuous philosopher. It's not fair. Zach-App! Thank you for the raid! What's up? How was stream today? What were you up to? Sometimes I like go over there, I lurk a little bit, but yeah. What's going on, Zach-App? Shout out to Zach-App. Thank you for the follows. Zach-App was streaming like some political discussion last I saw him, like talk science and things. But yeah, hi, welcome and hi, I'm Noah. Call me Noger, Nogre, Nogreo, whatever you want. Just don't be a jerk about it. Yeah. Thank you for the follows. You look Zach so hard? Yeah. Zach's cool. Well, we got a little mushroom avatar last time I was over there. I forget, but had a good mullet a while ago too. Yeah, what was going on? How you doing? Well, how was your stream? What was? If you need to take a break, you don't feel the need to stick around. But yeah, you guys a South African chap? Oh, could be. I have no idea. What's the soup du jour today? Hey, K-Pars. Welcome in. Private property is thief. Yeah, we're reading some aesthetics and we're talking about environmental installations. So right now what we were discussing is if you make one of these massive environmental installations, especially ones that are supposed to like comment on like environmental destruction, but in doing it you make a massive amount of environmental destruction, what's the justification there? Are you a hypocrite? And it's like, well, if we weren't doing massive amount of environmental destruction otherwise, it wouldn't matter if that like you made a little bit of environmental destruction to do your art, but like it's the thing. Private property is theft. Yeah, I mean, depends on how communist you are, how Marxist you are, but yeah, private property is a very Western capitalistic sort of idea. So, yeah, so like Stonehenge stuff. Yeah, well, this is more contemporary artworks. So there was an artwork where the focus of this paper, K-Pars, is they had an artist chopped up or got some glaciers from Greenland and then brought them to like London and Paris and stuff. And that took a huge amount of energy to transport giant chunks of ice across the world. And then just for it to, then they placed it in downtown Paris, and people could go experience like glaciers in downtown Paris, and that was an experience, and that's cool, but well, is it worth it to make the point if you're gonna do this? And I find this sort of very uncomfortable. I'm like, if you're doing a cool artistic thing, but you have to get criticized for your massive environmental impact, well, what's really at issue here? Is it our capitalistic culture? Is it society at large? And then you're just weighing, well, how good was your art? Is your art good enough that you can justify it like everyone else justifies their shitty environmental practices? Because oh yeah, we're running business here. Yeah. Holy lazy duck. Hello. Honestly, art is so nice when done natural. I've seen folks make art out of very cool, eco-friendly things before. Yeah, of course you can do it differently. But should we criticize the ones that don't always? Yeah. Some big worldly flex. Yeah. Great art is often wasteful at some level. Yeah, art is often very difficult. Art requires huge amounts of resources, is often very toxic. People do not realize how toxic art, painting art is. I mean, if you want to talk about having an iPad to draw on, again, massively wasteful in terms of environmental impact. What about a work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction? We've talked about that before. We have talked about that. But yes, I made French onion soup with gratine today. Ooh, it sounds good. You get the topic now? Yeah. Human says art is more susceptible to this criticism. No, I don't think it's more, but it is subject to it. I don't know about more susceptible to it, but people bring it up like it's a big deal. I don't know if it is a big deal. Make the ice on that site and lie about it. Easy fix. Yeah, but that would take huge amounts of energy too. And also, part of this installation was that it was melting ancient art. You were experiencing the air bubbles in it were 10,000-year-old air. So you were getting air from 10,000 years ago. You cannot manufacture 10,000-year-old air. Prof says arts are just toxic in general, aesthetically, metaphysically, and socially. Yeah, it could be. Some are. I'm not sure all of them are, though. But like, so you can't actually just make it on the fix. Like, it's not an easy fix. Like, there is no easy fix to art. Like, if you're doing the art like 10,000-year-old air and releasing it now, well, it was going to get released anyway. But doing it in downtown Paris, releasing 10,000-year-old air in downtown Paris slowly over time and in public is not actually as simple as a thing, you might say. Just throw them out of our great city. There you go. It wasn't all destructive. Yeah, Benjamin. Yeah. Destructive still something you try to understand. Yeah, so, a lot of creation tends to be destructive. It can quite be there. But 10K old air is just air. Is it? Well, I mean, a line is just a line. These are just words on the page. What does anything have significance then? So the idea is that, look, like a picture is just a picture. No, sometimes there's context and stuff that there's no argument that we might be putting more meaning into the art than is actually there. Sure, but so what? We're going to be like, oh, I'm breathing 10,000-year-old air. Like, this air was trapped 10,000 years ago. People will, attribute significance to it. Just use disinfectant wipes. Duh. Yeah. So, again, not all art will be for everybody, but certain things will affect you or somebody else differently. And I mean, that's part of the point of art, is that some of it will matter to you. Some of it. Not all of it. And maybe there's people out there who don't like art, but like at all. But, that would be a very vast minority. Like, we have science now, of course. Yeah, science only. Arr. Is it a persisting thought for you, though, compositions to, in fact, have inherent meanings? Yeah, well, then you can get it. If you want to, like, understand about inherent meanings, then you're going to get deeper into, like, theories of meaning, which is a different topic. But, like, we do, whatever the art is, some things might have inherent meaning, other things we might put on to the art, but, like, it's going to have meaning one way or the other. Like, what did the artist mean by this? What do we understand by it? What does society understand by this? But, like, these are normal questions. Is art beauty? Well, according to some, I mean, I'm not a beauty theorist. All air is over 10K old? Yes, DCI, you are technically correct. The idea was that air has not been redistributed in the world since then. There is some amazing non-beautiful art. Yeah. So, again, what are you looking for your art? If you are looking for, like, fancy, like, some idea of, like, the great art, the beauty in the world, and some people are looking for that sort of thing, then yes, art might, like, correspond to beauty. But, like, not everyone thinks so, and then there might be some more general terms. You do like some ugly art and sounds? Yeah. I mean, I am generally on the position I am looking for variety, interesting thoughts, new perspectives. So it doesn't have to be just beauty for me. I'm looking for something new, interesting, different in the world. Now, maybe you just define beauty in that way, and that's fine. That's up to you. But again, like, that's not what everyone means by beauty then. So. Ultimately, for human, it goes back to the physical extent of concepts like image of God. Yeah. And so if you have a, like, larger concept where everything gets tied in, then sure. But again, then you have to have a pretty meaty sense of an image of God. Like, I don't have any image of God, like, concept in my head. I don't know what that would be, what God's image is. But if you have something like that and everything relates to it, but you need some, like, pretty substantial theory to tie everything together. Tender says, speaking of what anything is, have you found any compelling philosophical definition for what a person, or is philosophy just not equipped to answer it? There's, of course, definitions that are useful at different times. So, like, back in the day, the old joke was that, Plato was trying to define what a person is. And he said, a featherless biped. And that immediately fell down. Famous story, Diogenes plucked a chicken, put it in front of him, and said, "Behold, a man." And that didn't work. So the question for me would be, what are you trying to do with it, tender juicy nuggets? Like, there's not going to be a universally agreed upon definition because people are varied and it's hard to, like, make just analytic definitions that hold up for all time and space. But like, if you have a particular use, then I'm sure there's someone that has said something along those lines. Holy Lazy Ducks is back to art. Do you think that anything like major level of destruction needs to occur before art needs to be stopped? Is there a fine line, or is there like a holistic decision for me? You know, I mean, I don't want anyone to die because of art. Like, that's bad. But, you know, you could say some people's deaths are their art. Like, there's people who martyr themselves. And they may martyr themselves in a particular way. There was a fascist, I think, Japanese guy who committed seppuku, like the old style disembowelment in Japan in like the 50s or 60s or maybe 70s. And so the way they did it was to make a political and artistic statement. And so that would be the destruction of a human life. Granted, it was their choice, and they were trying to make a political thing. It's like, we have lost our way, and we want to get back to this sort of like hardcore way of being, and like we have to do stuff like that. I mean, there's definitely moral lines I don't think you should cross. There's no, like, is there an art that would matter more than the human race? I mean, I don't think so, because art is generally, for us, as far as I can tell, we're not doing anything else. Now, if you had some sort of religious belief that like the gods called to us to make art, and then we all had to take this, drink this Kool-Aid, although it isn't technically Kool-Aid. If you all had to drink the Kool-Aid to go get onto the spaceship and leave our planet, I think that's insane. But like, again, people have done this. I don't think you should do that. But like, I don't think, like, I wouldn't know of any art that would really require, you know, the death of innocence. Like, that would be crazy to me. Like, morally repugnant sort of thing. So like, if that, like, your art is killing lots of people, it's like, yeah, you should be stopped. K-Par says, okay, but in Statesman, he's critiquing mathematical practicing diaries, cutting by halves and keeping the side where the thing is method for truth is supposed to be kind of absurd. I don't know what that is, K-Pars. But yeah. So what kind of political statement? I think he was fascist. Art Berlin. Art Berlin, not Art. I think the person was fascist and wanted a fascist government and was trying to inspire a political movement. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, Plato's Man is Chicken. This is an ancient story that I was talking about. I don't know what, like, this is from Diogenes, not, so I don't know. Diuresis? Yeah, I don't know. See, I don't know my ancient well enough. I'm sorry, K-Pars. So this is an ancient story about Diogenes, not Plato. So Plato was speaking the theory, and then Diogenes came along and spoiled the theory. That's the ancient story about Diogenes. I don't know what Plato was talking about. Yeah. Yeah, sounds like it. Brutal traditions, yeah, Arbelin, yeah. So that's, so like, I'm not saying it hasn't been done, and it hasn't been done with maybe even some sort of aesthetic purpose in mind, like killing people, killing yourself, like, I'm not advocating for any of this. I'm just saying I think it has been done. I don't think it's, I mean, I was just watching The Silence of the Lambs, the other day. I love that movie. And like, Buffalo Bill is a murderer, like a serial killer. And he's trying to, like, you know, make some change. And I think you could argue it was an aesthetic change too. So like, that is a story about a serial killer who's psychotically trying to use other people and killing them in purpose of like their art. And like, that's bad. We should stop the Buffalo Bills of this world. So even though that's a fictional story, it is a plausible story in some sense. We could see someone like that existing in our society. And that's why it's a, you know, it was a book and then a movie. Okay, but anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to, like, we're mostly through this paper, actually. Yeah, so we're discussing, like we were doing, responsibility that concerns aspects of human life with respect to art. And of course, it involves all this. Like, art is inherently part of, like, the capitalistic world we live in. Buffalo Bill is based on real-life events and people. Yeah. There was a book, and I agree. As far as I know, I don't know too much about it, but the author took a bunch of pieces from other serial killers and put them together to make Buffalo Bill. K-Par says, so in Plato and Statement, he's quizzing an interlocutor to find out what statesman is, and they settle on being a steward of men, but what are men? They're bipedal feathers, and it leads to absurdity. Diagram of the progression of the dialogue. Okay. Yeah. So, fair. Let's see what we got. Okay, don't really have to go with this, but like, yeah, it's it's like you get this sort of argument, and it's like you're 2 feet featherless here. But it does go to absurdity, but I guess a lot of that does. But I think the deeper question from the Diogenes side was that this is not even the right sort of analysis to be using to talk about people. The idea that you would make this kind of diagram is wrong-headed. This is the wrong way of going about it. Now, that's fine that Plato does this, but like, again, you might like this sort of reasoning, this sort of analysis. We're going to like, make a decision tree and then say this or that, then not this property or that property, not this property or that property. So it's like, yeah. But is that the right way to talk about humans, to, break them down into a million properties? 2 feet, I barely have 4 inches. Yeah, you and me both, man. Yeah, definitely, and it's not Plato is pressing a mathematician on how to find the truth who puts that method forward. Yeah, that's fair. But, well, Plato's dialogue, you always have to, like, be a little bit suspicious. Like, Plato was writing these dialogues about Socrates, and he's either criticizing or also sometimes propounding these views, and it's hard to say. Granted, Socrates usually tears everything apart, but, like, yeah. So, it's like, again, I'm not a scholar of ancient philosophy. You can go bug our buddy Aristotle about that. Arbelin says mathematicians know all about truth and nothing about reality. What same has been said about philosophers. Tender Juicy Nugget says cutting humans down to their properties implies that you can put it all together and know everything between that makes it work. Pretty arrogant, lol. Yeah. Well, that is part of the criticism of it. It's like, is this actually a good way of going about defining something complicated like a human? A human is not something like a triangle where you can talk about the properties, and that is the properties because that's what is like the definition of a triangle is. Like a triangle is like 3 sides, like an enclosed 3-side figure, and like talking about that way is fine because that is what it is by definition. We don't have the definition of man. We don't have like the idea or form of man, and so going about that, the whole sort of Platonic vision of the world is suspect. Arbelin says, but philosophers make the error of trying to make statements about reality. Yeah, I'm a math head. Well, God forbid you should try to say anything about the world and, do something. Like, is that really an error? Like, that we might try to, say something about the world? Is that such a problem? Because, I mean, the world is where we live, and we try to do stuff. So, yeah. I mean, I'm a metaphysician. I try to say very abstract things, but if you look at what I do or what I do talk about the world. So, yeah. All right. So, continuing. Prof says, the world is where we live. Controversial statement in 2024. Yeah, I know, Prof. Well, I mean, you know me. I'm like everyday sort of philosopher. Like, I call this a hand, and I stand by this being a hand, come hell or high water. I don't give a fuck about your skepticism. This is a hand. It's like, I am a controversial person because I have absolute certainty that, like, this is a hand. Now, do we know what the world is? I live in a fractured kind of world, but this is still where we live, so I want to talk about it. You guys have lives? Oh my god. Well, I'm not dead. Imagine thinking that's a hand. Arbelin says, purely abstract is basically math cheap trick to perfect truth. Yeah, but I know. But like, if that's all you want to do in this life is talk about math, like, more power to you. But there is other stuff in this world. And don't tell the other mathematicians you gave that away, please. Okay, don't worry. Your secret's safe. Your secret's safe here. Yeah. Yeah. I'm an oddball. I will grant that, and I have receipts at this point. I'm an oddball with receipts. So. All right. Their work is in keeping with Arnold Berland's discussion of the moral status of the artist. Yeah, moral status of, like, who the fuck knows? Like, it's like the moral status of people. Artists are people. We don't even have moral status of people, let alone artists. But this person made a claim that they have a unique obligation to be faithful to the capacities of their art, which includes their integrity of intent over that of the community that judges the work. Yeah, so like, how good is your art? But then again, we get into that dangerous question. Say your art involves killing people that don't want to be killed. That doesn't sound very good. For Berliand, to untangle the motives or dishonesty of artists is difficult and should be addressed on a case-by-case basis. Eliasson and Rosing wanted to provide the Parisian community with immediate access to the natural aesthetic properties of Greenlandic iceberg chunks. The Guardian reported that they wanted to bring the effects of climate change closer to home, that in order to create the massive behavioral change needed to tackle climate change, we have to emotionalize the data, make it physically tangible. Instead of fear-based narratives, Eliasson wanted a positive narrative to make people change their behavior and provide a glimpse of hope that we understand what's happening, we know exactly what needs to be done, and we actually have the means to fix it. Yeah, so the vision that they were going for was big, and so again, you have to go big if you want to do something big. Tyndareus doesn't exist. It's good to know. But like, yeah, if you're going to do really big art, you end up having, want to make a very big omelet, you have to break a lot of eggs. That's how it goes. The Guardian article also reports that Eliasson and Rosing point out that the fact that 10,000 blocks of ice, like those displayed in London installation, are falling from the ice sheets every single second. Yeah, so again, this is the old, I like going back to the Goldfinger, the old Bond movie. So Bond is criticizing Goldfinger for going to explode a nuclear device in the Washington, D.C. area, and Goldfinger goes, American tourists kill that many people in 2 years. Like, it's only 2 years of all the road deaths in the United States. Like, who cares? It's like, well, you're stealing the money. That's what you're doing. And then you're killing people. These people are trying to save the earth. So, yeah. Become a YouTuber? Yeah. I mean, these get put up on my YouTube, by the way. So this is going to be on YouTube. Water is life. Very deep. Yes. Okay. So even if we are criticizing them, maybe in the grand scheme of things, it's not so bad, especially if they had a good purpose that we like. The largesse of spirit in the perceiver of these works should apply in the adjudication of artwork and artists. The virtues mentioned above in part 2 apply to both. How are we to discern their integrity when it seems their intent or their attitude has laudable aspects and should not necessarily be taken cynically? Yeah, so, I mean, they're saying they're doing great things. They had to do some bad stuff in the process. But this is the old argument against virtues, that they are not consistent. Interpreting virtues cannot be done consistently because one virtue might say do A, another virtue says B, and you can't do both A and B. So it's like, it's a problem. That's for if you're looking for consistent virtue ethics. Okay, it is unclear to me that we should be going after the artist, at least in these cases, given the 37.12 billion metric tons we emit from fossil fuels and industry that we predicted to have risen 0.9% to some more mathy stuff in 2022. Yeah, so comparing the artists and what they do compared to what industry does, it's not even a drop in the bucket. One final point we can make is that Ice Walks, and also Double Negative and Asphalt Rundown, calls our attention to better respecting not only ecology or the natural environment, but our own individual and collective activities and practices. If we criticize artists for their ethical flaws, we had better mind our own actions and their implications for the natural environment. Am I familiar with the theological significance of water? No, I am not. I mean, I know it has uses in different religions, but I don't know of anything in particular or what you're talking about. Conclusions. What can we learn from Ice Walks regarding the development of sustainable attitude towards environment? In Islam, God's throne is on water. Ooh, cool. Cool throne. Okay, that's cool. All right. How and what might we learn from it to better understand the relationship between aesthetic value, ethical value, and the concept of sustainability? Sheila Lintott wrote that the highest perception of our time is found in environmentalism, that is, in the awareness that our well-being in the present and for future generations, individual and collective, lies in the growth of and understanding and respect for nature and harmonious relationship between human and nature. Yeah, so this is like the old return to the earth. Like, this is the highest thing, is to understand how we relate to the world. And Anne asks, isn't God supposed to be everywhere and everything? Well, not in all religions, Some gods are, not all gods. So, in different religions, God can have a water throne. Yeah, so. Yeah, can have but again, theology is its whole thing on its own too. So, you got a lot more faith than I have. Water comes up in all creation myths, as you're aware. Oh, yeah. And it makes sense, yeah. So it's like, again, and the oldest Western philosophy going back to Thales has like the earth, like the world broken down to like air, fire, water, and earth. So it's like, it's one of the 4 basic primal like building blocks of the universe in like Western philosophical tradition. So yeah. Okay. The relationality of, and Heraclitus, who have my Heraclitus quote bot, I mean, basically has rationality set up to be like when the soul gets wet. That's the loss of reason. So it's set up like water and wetness is set up against rationality and the dryness of thought. So it's like you have dry thought and the wet thought is bad. When you're drunk, your thought is wet. So it's like, it's an anti-rational concept even also. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Yes, thank you, Valpo, for the historical insight. Okay. The relationality of art to world, of world to us, affords aesthetic experiences that are complex and sometimes transcendental. Ice Watch offered such complexity and possibility for transcendence. That very complexity and transcendence is cause for assessing our externally directed and internal motivations, not only in our judgment of it as an artwork or Eliason as an artist, but of our own, thank you for follow, behavior. My own experience of the work was positive and negative. It was one of beauty and guilt that combined with knowledge of its art historical trajectory and ecological and environmental knowledge. The interaction between moral and aesthetic values according to virtue appreciation approach shows our regard for the natural environment and its embeddedness with how we live and the decisions we make, also to promote sustainability. Indeed, virtue appreciation is about broadening a moral stance with regard to artworks like Ice Watch, rather than immediate moral condemnation, thinking through artistic intention within its historical, cultural, and environmental context. Okay, and now for everyone who's new here, what we do is we rate the paper. Do you think this was a good paper? So we have this is the emote review. These are better TTV emotes. So if you can't see them in your chat, but you should be able to see them below. Brain dance, for fun ideas that make the brain dance, you have to type it out exactly as the name says. Give it a brain dance. You can also use it for multiple. You can use multiple brain dances for it was really a good, gave you a lot to think about. Nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. So you can see grapes shriveling up into raisins. Then we've got Nog Navel for navel gazing, only for academics. Ouroboros for deeper ancient ideas. Nog Scream for existential or artistic drama. I mean, this is going to get me a scream for me, of course. Nog Turd, all style, no substance. Still poop underneath. Yeah, a lot of analytic philosophy. It's like they did fancy stuff, but the argument still sucked. And Nog Knife for analytic philosophy where you're slicing and dicing arguments. So this, I mean, conceivably, a lot of things could go on here. And then we also have the vote yay, the global vote yay and vote nay. Those are Twitch global emotes and my vote meh. So yeah. K-Pars just got here at the end, but it seemed kind of interesting. Vote yay, vote meh. Yeah, so, and if you do both vote yay and vote meh, unfortunately it won't go through because of this. Actually, I don't know if it'll go through, but yeah, the slash messed up your vote yay there. You will get an in-between rating because these will eventually be calculated into a rating. Yeah, Keck W. So yeah. So, okay, what am I going to give it? Like, this started off pretty weak, just with a lot of hand waving about art. Then I thought it got better, where it did actually talk about some of the issues that were going on with the art. So, I mean, how great was it? I don't know. I'm trying to think through it. So, what did anything interesting really happen here? What was the whole fucking point of this? Yeah. So basically this came down to that we don't know how to consistently apply virtues. The issue was the author really liked the art, but it made them feel conflicted. So in the end, in terms of metaphysics, yes, what we got was that virtues cannot be applied consistently. They liked the art, but then it conflicted with their moral issues. So I think this was not a bad. Tenderos gave it a meh. Tenderos did not really like it. Too navel gazing. Did not think it kept up with the promises. DCI fucking loved it. And then also said that, it was still poop underneath. So made big claims that didn't show out. But, what they did do was they talked about the art in a pretty nice way. I have to give them credit for that. They gave some nice descriptions of it. Yeah. DCI. Tindarius is like, why did you like it so much? Interesting. Yeah. I've never actually asked anyone to justify their rating before, but yeah, that's gonna skew the overall chat rating. That's kind of interesting. But yeah. So let's see. What do I say? Anne says existential with a meh. Not bad. Not bad. I'm gonna give it let's see. I'm gonna give it 2 vote Scream. Oh, are we not working today? Oh, I can't type. I just can't spell. That's my problem. 2 Nog Screams, I think, because we're talking art drama here. Like, what's the value of art? Seems pretty basic for you. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not too basic. It's a question of like, is this worth someone's time to read? Getting 2 Screams, average paper, but nothing new. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And so sometimes there are papers that like I come across, I think are good because I've never read them before, and then everyone in chat's like a whole lot of meh because they're like, this is nothing new. And that happens with a lot of politics stuff for me. It's like, I think it does. So like this comes along, so that happened. I'll give it a, you're going to get a vote meh, but you're also going to get a brain dance out of me, because I thought it was a little bit of fun. I'm a sucker for this stuff. I like good art, descriptions of art. I thought they did a good job describing the art and how like we got to talk about 10,000-year-old air. That's a good example. And like someone in chat was like, well, why does that matter? It's like, well, all the air we breathe has been around for 10,000 years. Yeah, but that particular air wasn't circulating for 10,000 years. And so it's like it got some nice examples of what it was. You like the stock. Okay. So yeah. I thought this was not bad. I thought it was accessible enough that I'm not going to give it a navel gazing. Was it all style, no substance? I don't think this was, like Tindarius said, this is not like a super heavy hitting philosophy article with a lot of like strong claims, but like I don't think they were that bad either. So I think I'm happy with my rating. A meh, a brain dance, and 2 existentials. Like for an article like this is not that bad. Now, everyone, of course, in chat is free to rate. This is your first time here. These are better TTV emotes. If you have better TTV installed, you can do the : nog, and it will give you like a selection of things. So that'll pop up. But yeah, everyone else, feel free to rate. But thank you, Tindarius, Tender Juicy Nuggets for the brain dance, DCI, and K-Pars. Yeah. So. Yep. All right. So here we go. You didn't pay much attention. That's fine. That never stopped you from chiming in before. 60 seconds left. Get your vote in if you want to get it in. And you don't have to, of course. There's no requirement that you vote here. If you weren't paying attention, that's fine. If you were paying attention and don't want to vote, that's fine too. I've had people be like, I'm not qualified enough. No, you're in chat. That makes you qualified enough. So, that's all it is. And then we'll find someone to raid because it's 3 hours and my voice has been scratchy since like the 30-minute mark today. Who's live right now? You'll take a wild guess. There we go. Okay, that's fine. Did not like it. So, what was I just looking at? Oh, all the follows. I was like, what is all of that? Oh, we've got Shane is up. We'll raid Shane. I very rarely get to raid Shane. So that's what we'll do.